Chapter 360. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky suddenly moved. The dark clouds in the sky began to change and finally turned into a few large words. No matter what method you use, go to the opposite island. If you pass, you can proceed to the next stage. If you fail, you will die. These words were only displayed for a short 30 seconds. Although it wasn't long, it was enough for everyone to clearly see what those words meant. They want us to go to the opposite island. The waves are so strong now, how are we going to get there? Someone complained. Even if we can't, we still have to go. If we fail, we will die here. Someone spat out fiercely with a gloomy face. Fortunately, I brought a flight scroll. I'm definitely going to pass this stage. After saying that person took out a scroll from his spatial ring. It was the flight scroll that person had mentioned. That person opened the scroll and activated the array on it. The flight scroll immediately wrapped around him and sent him up into the sky. The man was flying against the sea breeze, and soon, he had covered half the distance. The island on the other side was not far from him. Unexpectedly, at this time, the small black whirlwind in the sky bumped into the man. Ah! After a miserable scream, that person's body was twisted into pieces and turned into a pile of blood that splashed into the sea. Not a single bone was left behind. Chee! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This kind of small whirlwind was only the size of a normal person's head. Who would have thought that such an inconspicuous thing could make someone die so miserably without leaving behind a corpse? Looks like we can't go through the sky. Someone sighed in shock. Going through the water is not necessarily safe either. Let me try. A bold man circulated his do-chi to his feet and stepped on the water surface, wanting to use this method to walk over directly. He did not expect that he would fall into the water the moment he stepped on it. The man climbed up with an ugly expression. A few short-sighted people thought that this man's skills were not good enough and could not even do something as simple as walking on water. Among them, there was no lack of discerning people who could see the problem with a single glance. This man's strength was not weak at all. It was impossible for him to make such a mistake. There was only one possibility for such a thing to happen, and that was that the water was not a single strand and could absorb the energy in a person's body. Another water magician tried to use water magic, and the result was the same. This time, those who were laughing at others couldn't laugh anymore. They weren't idiots, and even those who didn't know what was going on knew that something was wrong. This was great. There were so many small whirlwinds flying in the sky, and anyone who touched them would die. Furthermore, the water had the ability to suppress all powers. Unless they relied on their physical strength to swim across, but who knew if there would be something as terrifying as the mini whirlwind in the water? For a moment, everyone was frowning. However, it wasn't as if there weren't any smart people. After some people discovered this situation, they simply cut down trees on the island to make rafts. This idea undoubtedly opened everyone's minds. That's right, even if they couldn't use magic or combat chi, they could still make a boat or a raft and row over by themselves. This time, everyone started to act. Fengwu and Ajur were no exception. The two of them decided to build a canoe. There were only two of them, so they didn't need to make the canoe too big. It was fine as long as it could hold the two of them. Fengwu didn't have the slightest bit of experience in building a canoe. Fortunately, there was Shozo beside her. Shozo was an otaku for more than 100 years, and he learned a lot of things. As long as he was interested in a book, he would read it. When the conditions were good enough, he would find a professional to teach him one-on-one. For a period of time, Shozo was very interested in building a boat, and he even specially invited a professional boatmaster to teach him for a period of time. Shozo took out a blueprint from his space ring and scribbled on a piece of paper. Finally, he designed a canoe that met the two's requirements. Shozo was just an ordinary person without any abilities. Asking him to do physical labor was undoubtedly a dream. Therefore, Fengwu went to the forest alone and cut down a huge tree. The trees here also didn't have the slightest consciousness. Perhaps the environment here made them unable to develop their own consciousness. Fengwu walked in the forest, and other than a piece of dead silence, she couldn't feel anything else. After cutting down a huge tree, under Shouzo's instructions, Fengwu started to build a boat with her small sword. When the people who were busy building rafts and boats saw a girl like Fengwu busying herself while a man like Shouzo was giving orders, they didn't hesitate to give Shouzo a disdainful look. These people all thought of Shouzo as a useless gigolo who could only rely on women to survive, and Fengwu as a kind and pitiful girl. At the same time, they also felt that Fengwu was a little stupid. Why was she working so hard for a man she didn't know? She should just kick this man out. It was better than letting a useless man give orders by her side. In the hearts of these onlookers, Fengwu and Shouzo were two people who were bound to die. One was a useless ordinary person, and the other was a young girl. How strong could a girl of this age be? At most, she would only have the strength of a mid-level swordmaster. Therefore, it wasn't very likely that they wouldn't die. How could Shouzo not notice the eye-catching gazes of these people? However, at this moment, he was indeed a little useless. He was already used to being looked down upon by others, and it was hard for him to feel hurt because of this. No matter how fragile his heart was, after being laughed at for over 100 years, it was hard for him to be touched by others' mockery. Unlike the others, Fengwu's reaction was different. In the eyes of the Fengwu girl, Shouzo was very powerful. He could draw the design in such detail, and when he talked about how to build a ship, he was like a master. He could answer Fengwu's questions. If Fengwu didn't understand something at the moment, he could explain it until she understood it. And no matter how difficult Fengwu's question was to answer, he could use a way that Fengwu could understand to answer Fengwu. Fengwu looked at Shouzo with a face full of adoration. Shouzo felt very embarrassed. This was the first time someone looked at him with adoration because of such a small matter. Others would only say, "So what if you know a lot about these miscellaneous subjects? You are a useless person who can't become a swordmaster or a magician. Even if you become a great scholar, you are destined to be an ordinary person with a short life." Fengwu, on the other hand, worshipped him because he knew these things that ordinary people knew. What an interesting girl. Time passed quickly. Everyone was building the ship silently. In a moment, on the beach, boats of all shapes and sizes came out one after another. Some people directly hollowed out the body of a big tree and used it as a boat. Some people used the vines on the island to wrap around the tree and made a wooden raft. Chapter 361. Time passed quickly. Everyone was building their boats in silence. For a time, boats of all shapes and sizes appeared on the beach. Some people directly hollowed out the body of a big tree and used it as a boat. Some people used the vines on the island to wrap around the tree and made a wooden raft. Among all the boats, there were some that were well built and some that were not. Fengwu's boat was undoubtedly the best. The boat was well planned and even had a sail installed on the boat. Among the non-mainstream boats, this boat was simply too classy. If Fengwu's boat was a branded product, then the majority of the boats were just cheap goods that cost 990 yuan. "Hey, kid, hand over your boat. I'm a magnanimous person and will use our boat to exchange for yours. You don't have to be too grateful." A burly man appeared in front of Xiaozhua. Xiaozhua frowned and looked at the burly man who was holding a large knife and staring at him with an unfriendly expression. Fengwu frowned at the same time. She took a few steps forward and stared at the burly man with her black eyes. There was no fear in her eyes. "No, it's ugly." Fengwu rejected him directly. She even pointed at the burly man's boat and gave them the word, "ugly." The burly man's boat was indeed ugly. There was only a hole in the boat with a knife. The hole was not smooth and it would be uncomfortable to sit inside. Moreover, they did not know if the boat would sink. Looking at the boat made them feel insecure. The burly man's act of exchanging boats seemed to have reminded the others. Yes, it did not matter if they did not make a good boat. As long as someone else made a good boat, it would be fine. With that thought, a round of exchanging boats was actually snatching boats. Although most of the boats did not seem to have been certified, there were some that were better. But was exchanging boats so easy? Other than a few cannon fodders who overestimated themselves, the representative of this group was Xiazhua, the rest were true experts. Experts would often fight with each other. That's right, before these ships could go out to conquer the sea, they would have to fight over the ships. And Feng Wu had already started fighting. Yes, they started fighting. After being criticized by Feng Wu, the man couldn't help but rush towards Feng Wu with his sword. This man wasn't an ordinary person. He had killed countless people. His main job was a pirate, and his secondary job was a bandit. Both his main job and secondary job were related to the word bandit. Moreover, this man had a habit. Every time he stole something from others, he would never leave anyone alive. If he encountered a woman, he would send her on her way. If he encountered a man, he would kill him with a single slash. This time, he saw that Feng Wu and Xiaozuo's team were very easy to bully, so he wanted to forcefully take their ship. If they were outside, he would not have forcefully taken their ship. Instead, he would have killed them and taken their ship. When Feng Wu saw the man slashing towards her with his sword, her eyes flashed. Then, she lifted her leg. Without even using her sword, she kicked the man, who was as thick as a bear, and sent him flying. The man flew for a full 5 meters in the air before stopping. As soon as he stopped, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Those who originally wanted to rob Feng Wu's team saw this scene and their eyes flashed. They felt that it was better to rob someone else. This girl didn't seem to be easy to deal with. After a full 30 seconds, Xiaozuo finally recovered from Feng Wu's fast and almost invisible kick. So powerful. Feng Wu must be a legendary genius, Xiaozuo thought blankly. While they were busy snatching the ships, many people had already chosen to go out to sea. There were many oddly shaped boats floating on the sea. There were also a few daring people who chose to fly in the sky. The danger in the sky came from those omnipresent small whirlwinds. If one could avoid those whirlwinds, there would be no danger. Feng Wu and Xiaozuo pushed the boat into the sea. The two of them boarded one after another and used the oars they made to row towards the opposite island. The wind on the sea was getting stronger and stronger. Some of the boats and rafts that were originally built like tofu crumbled when the wind came. If the boat didn't capsize, then the logs would fall apart. The two brothers who built the raft were also eccentric people. After the raft fell apart, the two of them reacted quickly. They each hugged a log and prepared to swim to the opposite shore. See, I was right. We should build a raft. Even if it falls apart, we won't be afraid. We can still swim over with the logs. Boss, you're right. This little brother's admiration for you is like the endless waves of the river. Two amusing idiots. Everyone who passed by rolled their eyes at them. At the same time, they regretted it. If they had known, they would have built a raft too. The wind is too strong. Xiaozuo was a little uneasy. Even if they built a good boat, it didn't mean that they would be able to row to the opposite shore. He believed that this wouldn't be so easy. Don't be afraid. I'll protect you. Feng Wu looked at Xiaozuo seriously and said. Knowing that Xiaozuo didn't have much fighting power, Feng Wu had already decided to protect this new friend of hers after the boat-building incident. Xiaozuo was a little touched when he heard that. Although it seemed quite useless to let a girl protect him, it was the first time he heard that a friend didn't despise him and even wanted to protect him. This feeling was quite good. Okay. Xiaozuo smiled. Feng Wu and the others could be said to be in front of everyone because they made the sail. However, as the wind increased, the boat became extremely unstable. It swayed, and there was a danger of capsizing at any time. At this time, Xiaozuo asked Feng Wu to lower the sail and the two of them rowed even harder. They were already not far from the opposite island. As long as they worked harder, they would have a chance to row over. Most of the boats behind Feng Wu and the others had capsized. Some of them were lucky enough to find a piece of wood and could swim over while others were unlucky. They could only rely on their own physical strength to cross this hurdle. The sea was blown up by the wind, and the waves gradually grew stronger. Everyone was like little ants struggling to survive in the waves. A huge wave came and everyone's boat was capsized. Fortunately, Feng Wu and the others weren't far from the shore. As long as they persevered and swam against the wind and waves, they would be fine. However, it was easier said than done. The two of them who fell into the water wanted to swim over, but every time they swam forward, another wave would hit them. Not only did the distance between them and the island not shorten, but it also increased. Persevering in the wind and waves was a very exhausting task. Xia's physical strength wasn't good to begin with. He no longer had the strength to swim forward. He was unwilling to give up. He hadn't stopped Zicheng yet. He couldn't die. He carried the hope of all living things in the future. He couldn't die here. Chapter 362. Persevering in the wind and waves was a very exhausting task. Xia's stamina was not good to begin with, and he no longer had the strength to swim forward. He was unwilling to give up. He had not stopped Zicheng, and he could not die. He carried the hope of all living beings in the future, and he could not die here. He was unwilling to give up, but his stamina was depleting faster and faster. His hands could not swim anymore, and his body slowly sank. Just when Xiazhua thought he was going to be drowned by the sea, his body was suddenly lifted up. Cough, cough. This was a piece of wood from the wooden raft. Xiazhua was finally saved in the wind and waves. He opened his tired eyes and saw Fengwu Girl's worried eyes. Cough, cough. I'm fine, don't worry. In the wind and waves, he did not know if Fengwu could hear him, but he did not have the strength to scream. Fengwu nodded and supported Xiazhua firmly on a piece of wood. Xiazhua was only a person, and it was not easy for him to persevere in the wind and waves for so long. Fengwu slapped the surface of the water and pushed the piece of wood that was carrying Xiazhua forward. Although the wind and waves were very strong, they would always be pushed further away. Fengwu continued to swim forward. Behind them, many people had exhausted their stamina and sank to the bottom of the sea forever. Only a few strong people were like Fengwu, and they swam forward with all their might against the wind and waves. Fortunately, the wind did not blow for long. 20 minutes later, the wind stopped, and the waves disappeared. Those who were still alive finally reached the opposite island. Ha! Ha! Xiazhua was dragged to the shore by Fengwu, and he could not stop panting. The sky was still dark, but the sea had returned to its usual calmness. So cold, after going through such a storm, his clothes were completely soaked. His clothes stuck to his body, and the cold made him shiver. At this time, the space beside him suddenly lit up. Now that he had reached the shore, he could use his ability again. Fengwu opened the space ring and found the flint inside. The flint was a tool for heating and lighting. As long as magic or dou qi was injected into it, the flint would burn like fire. Not only could it be used for lighting, it could also be used for heating. After the flint was ignited, Xiazhua felt his body gradually warming up. He had finally recovered some of his strength. He walked behind a large rock and changed into dry clothes. Fengwu had already changed her clothes and was sitting by the fire. She was looking at the island while warming herself. This was a small island with good scenery. There were many fruit trees growing on the island. They were all wild fruits that had never been seen before. Each and every one of them was very attractive, making people want to pick them and taste them. However, the group that had just stepped onto the island did not pick the fruits. It was best not to eat these unknown fruits. Who knew if they were poisonous? Before crossing the sea, there were more than 200 people who were still alive. After crossing the sea, less than 50 people came down. Most of them had died in the sea. Xiazhua sat beside Fengwu and warmed himself by the fire. He ate some of the chicken and bread that Fengwu had given him. He finally felt better, and his strength was recovering. Thank you, Fengwu. If it weren't for you, I would have died here like those people. Xiazhua was very grateful to Fengwu for saving his life. He did not know why he had never seen Fengwu beside Moon King in his previous life. He guessed that she might have encountered something that caused her to die prematurely. In this life, Fengwu had saved him. He would not let Fengwu die. He had to protect this girl and keep her alive. Xiazhua made up his mind. He had to keep Fengwu alive so that she could escape the fate of dying prematurely. No need to thank me. We are companions. Fengwu looked at him seriously. When she agreed to team up with Xia Zhua, she treated Xia Zhua as her companion. If her companion was in trouble, she had to help. Xia Zhua thanked her so gratefully. Fengwu was not used to it. Yes, we are companions. Xia Zhua smiled. Although his smile was weak, it was still as pure as a spring. The people who were still alive were adjusting themselves and resting. They were preparing to face the danger of the next stage. However, after waiting for 2 hours, the announcement that the second stage had begun did not appear. In order to get to this island, everyone was very tired. However, because they did not understand the situation on the island and were wary of the people around them, no one dared to sleep. The people who were still alive were meditating and cultivating their fighting aura. No one spoke. Everyone was preparing for the second stage. At the same time, they were also wary of the people around them. Those who were able to survive until now were all absolute powerhouses. Among them, there were even a few people who flew over from the sky. Those who chose the path of the sky were all magicians. Magicians had poor physical strength. If an accident happened in the water, they would lose their magic and be unable to rely on their physical strength to reach the other side. Some magicians who saw the reality clearly chose to fly over from the sky to fight for that slim chance of survival. Fengwu was not interested in other people. She closed her eyes and took a nap. She didn't know how much time had passed when the earth suddenly shook violently. The island suddenly split into 2 halves. In the middle of the island, a long flight of stairs appeared. The stairs went straight underground, but it was pitch black. It was impossible to see what was at the bottom of the stairs. At this time, a large word suddenly appeared on the ground. Enter the second stage from here. There were only these few words. There was nothing else. Even the requirements to pass the stage weren't written. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. A relatively courageous swordsman was the first to go down. Following that, there were people who went down one after another. Xia Zhua didn't care about the difference between men and women. He pulled on Fengwu's sleeve and followed the flow of people down. From the beginning of the first stage, it was different from the way Irene said it would be to pass the stage. He was certain that Irene didn't deceive him. As such, there was only one possibility. Because of some reason, the future had changed. Right now, he didn't have the slightest certainty that the heart of water was still in its original place. All he could do was take one step at a time. This long flight of stairs made his hair stand on end. He felt that regardless of whether he walked in front or at the back, it would be very dangerous. Only walking in the middle might be somewhat safer. Thus, he ignored etiquette and pulled on Fengwu to insert himself in the middle. After inserting himself in the middle of the line, Xia Zhua immediately let go of Fengwu's sleeve. The expression on his face was somewhat apologetic. However, Fengwu didn't have time to pay attention to this trivial matter. After the stairs leading underground appeared, Fengwu's eyes showed a trace of graveness. Chapter 363. The scene in front of her changed again. Everyone else's vision was pitch black, but hers was a sea of red as blood. Fengwu knew that this was called killing intent. A place with killing intent must have had a large number of deaths, and those people must have died very miserably. Fengwu had only seen a place with so much killing intent in a small town not far from the two-realm battlefield. This place is dangerous. Even Fengwu felt a sense of danger. She blinked and grabbed Xia Zhua's hand that had already let go. Looking at Xia Zhua's slightly red face, she said seriously, "Don't let go, it's dangerous." "Xia Zhua is too weak, I have to protect him," Fengwu girl thought seriously. "Oh," Xia Zhua replied weakly. When Fengwu suddenly grabbed his hand, he was a little embarrassed. Xia Zhua had lived for 2 lifetimes, but he had never held hands with a girl. In his previous life, because of Elisa's death, he had never married and had always focused on his studies. He had been a bachelor for 100 years. Only now did he realize that a girl's hand was so soft and gentle. It was different from a guy's hand. Xia Zhua was not narcissistic enough to think that Feng Wu was interested in him just because she took the initiative to hold his hand. He knew what kind of talent he had. In Heavenly Wind, the strong were respected. No matter what a powerful girl like Feng Wu said, he would not think that she was interested in him. The further down they went, the darker it became. Some people had already taken out magic tools to light up the place. There were pearls that could light up in the dark, and there were also magic tools that looked like torches. With these magic tools, the originally pitch-black stairs finally had some light. Under the bright light, they could see that the long stairs led to a very far place. There were 2 stone walls on both sides of the stairs. The stairs were just enough for 2 people to walk side by side. There were more than 40 of them, so they could walk side by side. The stone stairs were very old, and there was a thick layer of dust on it. As they walked, cobwebs would occasionally obstruct their progress. They had to stop and clean up before continuing. The group of more than 40 people walked for half an hour before finally reaching a flat surface. "Why are there so many dead people?" someone exclaimed. "Isn't this the sea god's tomb? Why are there so many skeletons in the sea god's tomb? Who are these people? Everyone, be careful. Something's wrong with this place." Everyone was on guard. In front of them, there were many skeletons that had already turned into white bones. Judging from the skeletons, they should be ordinary humans. There were no records of the sea god's tomb being opened before, so where did these human skeletons come from? It should be said that in an unopened tomb, it was a very inconceivable thing for so many skeletons to appear. These white bones were as bright and clean as jade. They were unbelievably white, causing people to feel a chill run down their backs. Many people felt their scalps go numb as they looked at these white bones. It was not that they had never seen white bones before, but it was very rare to see such white bones. It could be said that they had never seen such white bones before. "It's gone. Look, the stairs are gone." Someone shouted in panic. Everyone turned around, and sure enough, the long flight of stairs that should have been behind them had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only an empty stone wall. How could this be? The person who spoke took a big step forward and felt around the stone wall. The feeling from his hand told him that this was not an illusion. The stairs had really disappeared. "There's no other way. We can only continue forward." Someone took a deep breath and said, "Yes, there was no way out now. If they wanted to live, they could only continue forward until they left this place." Everyone calmed their restless emotions and began to slowly walk towards the passage in front of them. This passage was much wider than the stairs from before. It would not be crowded even if 3 people were to walk in parallel. This passage was the same as the stairs. There was a thick layer of dust piled up there, and a footprint would be left behind when one stepped on it. After getting rid of the cobwebs in front of them, everyone slowly moved forward. The unknown danger ahead made everyone on high alert, and they did not dare to relax. Drip, drip, drip. The sound of water dripping was very clear in this silent passage. At the same time, it made people feel even more uneasy. This uneasiness spread in everyone's hearts. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva, they carefully moved forward. There's the sound of water in front. It seems that we're about to leave this passage. Someone whispered to his companion next to him. In such a quiet environment, no matter how soft one's voice was, it was no different from speaking loudly. Even if one did not want to listen, the sound would automatically enter one's ears. "Don't relax. I keep feeling that the real danger is about to come," that person's companion said with a serious face. That person nodded, indicating that he would not relax. In this place, only those who did not want to live would relax. Although no one else responded to this man, in everyone's hearts, the same thought existed. The real danger was getting closer and closer. The more they walked forward, the stronger the uneasiness. Although they were uneasy, no one dared to stop. It was as if a voice was telling them that they could not stop. They could not stop. If they stopped, they would die. With heavy steps, more than 40 people carefully walked forward. In front of the passage, There was a trace of light, but no one dared to run over alone. Everyone walked forward. The more they walked, the closer they got to the hole that was emitting light. Finally, they reached the hole. Xiaozhua held Fengwu's hand. His palms were sweating profusely. His heart was so nervous that it almost jumped out of his throat. This was the tragedy of being weak. He could not even protect himself. "Don't be afraid. I'll protect you." Fengwu seemed to feel something. She reached out a hand and patted Xiaozhua's head. When she was young, when she was uneasy and afraid, her master would pat her head like this to comfort her. Xiaozhua stared blankly at Fengwu. Did she just pacify him? "Let's go in and take a look." After standing at the entrance for 5 minutes, someone decided to go all out with the idea of dying early. "Indeed, we have no choice but to go in. There's no other way for us to go." Someone sighed. They had no other choice. Everyone took out their weapons and held them in their hands. They were ready to fight to the death. Just as everyone was about to move forward, a voice suddenly came from behind. "What the hell is this place? It's so gloomy. Why am I in this broken place?" Hearing this, everyone immediately turned their heads. They saw a small magical beast that looked like a teacup hound. It opened its eyes wide and looked around in disbelief. This little guy was so skinny that it did not have much meat. There was even a white eggshell on its head. Its whole body was yellow in color. It looked really good. Chapter 364. The little guy was so skinny that it didn't have much meat on it. It had a white eggshell on its head, and its entire body was yellow in color. It didn't look good at all. "Baby!" Fengwu was shocked to see this little guy appear. She didn't think that this little guy could come out of the space ring by itself. This was something that had never happened before. This yellow creature that looked like a teacup dog was the ancient wise beast that Fengwu got at the auction. This little guy kept calling me baby. Fengwu later found out that this guy was really called Baby. After getting Baby, Fengwu used the power of the pure sword to purify the demonic aura on its body. Baby finally returned to its original appearance. It was a pity that it had been tortured by the demonic aura for too long. It would take a long time for it to fully recover. "This is your pet?" This little thing didn't look like his aesthetic. Wait. It looked like a puppy and had a white eggshell hat. Wasn't this the ancient wise beast that Zicheng got? It had already hatched. So fast. He clearly remembered that Zicheng's friends said that Zicheng's ancient wise beast egg took a whole year to hatch. How did it hatch so quickly when it came to Fengwu? Did Fengwu have some special egg hatching technique? Fengwu's handgirl, who was suspected of being an egg hatcher, was speechless. In fact, when Zicheng got this egg, he knew that this little guy wasn't an egg that needed to be hatched at all. It was a severely injured ancient wise beast that had returned to its newborn state. When ancient wise beasts were born, their bodies would be covered with a layer of eggshell-like energy substance. This substance could very well protect the newborn ancient wise beast from any external harm. When they gradually grew up, they would leave this state. They would only return to their newborn state to protect themselves when they encountered fatal danger. In his previous life, after Zicheng obtained the ancient wise beast, he used his points to exchange for a bottle of advanced purifying liquid. With this bottle of advanced purifying liquid, not only did he successfully purify the ancient wise beast's injuries, but he also purified its original intelligence. Therefore, in Baobao's previous life, it could be said that Baobao's intelligence was directly erased by Zicheng. Before Baobao's new intelligence was born, Zicheng successfully made a contract with the ancient wise beast. As for the new spiritual intelligence, it was created by Zicheng using the pills from the system store according to her own requirements. When that spiritual intelligence was born, because of Zicheng, it was completely loyal to her and didn't even have the thought of rebelling. It was a pity that Zicheng would never tell anyone about this. The favorability system was her biggest secret. Even if those people's favorability with her reached 100, she would never tell anyone about her secret. Even the male lead only thought that Zicheng had received some kind of special treatment. He never knew that the female lead had something like the favorability system. After Bao Bao was cured by Feng Wu, he had been sleeping in the space ring. He slept for 3 days and only just woke up did he realize that he was in such a smelly place. Bao Bao expressed that he was very unhappy. How could Bao Bao be brought to such a place without Bao Bao's permission? Bao Bao was unhappy. You're a pet. Your whole family is a pet. Bao Bao exploded when he heard the word pet. If it wasn't for the eggshell covering his head, his fur would have stood up. Don't make trouble. Feng Wu girl touched the eggshell on Bao Bao's head. The little guy immediately rubbed against Feng Wu comfortably. Xiazhua looked at this scene in surprise. He clearly remembered that the ancient wise beast didn't get close to anyone other than Zicheng. Moreover, its personality was stupid and cute. Was it really the same as this arrogant thing? Of course, it wasn't the same one. I say, Bao Bao has only slept for 3 days. How did you come to such a place? The evil aura is so thick that I can't even see the road clearly. How many people have died? Did you enter the demon's tomb? After being intimate with Feng Wu for a while, Bao Bao looked at Feng Wu with disappointment. This is a god's tomb. Feng Wu corrected. How does this look like a god's tomb? Do you think Bao Bao hasn't seen a god's tomb before? This really is a god's tomb, and it's the tomb of the god of the sea. Xiazhua interjected. God of the sea. How did you guys get into that guy's tomb? God of the sea is famous for being stingy in the realm of the gods. If you enter other gods' tombs, you might have a chance of getting out alive. But God of the sea will never let those who want to rob his tomb live. No wonder this place has such a thick evil aura. It really is God of the sea's style. Bao Bao nodded and said with a look of realization. What do you think this is? A dog. A dog. There's such a magical beast? I mean a dog. It's the kind of dog that ordinary people keep at home to look after their house. Your dog can fly, and it has eggshells on its head. I don't think this is a dog. It should be a dog egg. What's a dog egg? Could it be a cross between a dog and an egg? Damn. Go find an egg and cross it. This is the first time I've heard of a cross between a dog and an egg. The onlookers all pointed at the canine creature that looked like a dog with an eggshell on its head. This little thing can talk. Its level shouldn't be low. I don't think so. After drinking a bottle of spirit awakening elixir, even a pet can talk, let alone a magical beast. That makes sense. Xiazhua. Did you guys forget something? A bunch of fish-lipped mortals. Bao Bao proudly glanced at this group of people and snorted disdainfully, indicating that it was an adult with a large number of god-tier wise beasts and would not stoop to the level of ordinary humans. Stop talking. I say, did you guys forget something? Are we still going in? One of the guys finally couldn't take it anymore. They were here to search for the sea god's treasure, not to gossip about this dog egg. Could they please be clear about their priorities? The group of people who were chatting suddenly understood. Oh, we were just about to go in. I almost forgot. Bro, luckily you're here. Thanks. The others also thanked that brother, but that brother couldn't feel happy. What the F***ck was this? If it weren't for the fact that he was afraid that there was really a big guy inside and he couldn't beat it alone, he wouldn't have reminded this group of people. After coming back to their senses, it was time to get down to business. Everyone had already decided to go in and check out the situation. Feng Wu pulled Xiazhua with one hand. On her head sat a dog egg that had grabbed her hair and made it look like a bird's nest. Chapter 365. She walked with an elegant gait that no one had ever seen before. She arrived in front of the woman in an instant. The woman only saw a blur before she was sent flying by Feng Wu's sword. Ah! After taking a blow from Feng Wu, the blow landed on her stomach. She felt as if her internal organs were about to be shattered. The pain was unbearable. After spitting out a mouthful of thick blood, the woman's eyes, which were filled with hatred, had a trace of deep fear. Are you all right, Feng Wu? Xiazhua looked worriedly at Feng Wu, who had just finished a fight. What was wrong with her? She was the one who was in trouble. The onlookers spammed the bullet screen in their hearts. The Fengwu girl shook her head, indicating that she was fine. Bao Bao, who had been sitting on Fengwu's head, sat very steadily from beginning to end. He was not disturbed at all. Bao Bao looked disdainfully at the woman who was sprawled on the ground like a dead dog. This woman was really ugly. Bao Bao wanted to wash his eyes. Bao Bao's eyes had been polluted by this ugly woman. Wise beasts were different from ordinary beasts. In their eyes, beauty and ugliness did not depend on one's appearance, but on one's heart. No matter how beautiful a person's heart was, in the eyes of the wise beasts, they were still ugly. On the contrary, if a person had a beautiful heart but an ugly appearance, in their eyes, that person was not ugly, but a decent-looking normal person. If a person's heart was as beautiful as their appearance, in the eyes of wise beasts, they had a natural beauty effect and could become a fairy in minutes. In Bao Bao's eyes, Fengwu was a super beauty. Bao Bao had never seen a human as beautiful as Fengwu in his life. "It's fine," Fengwu said. "Let's go." Xiazhua noticed the strange looks from the people around him. He took Fengwu's hand and took the initiative to walk into the passage that Fengwu had chosen. The people behind watched the two of them go in and hesitated for a moment. They did not know if they should choose this path as well. On the other hand, the brother with dysphoria hesitated for a moment and immediately decided to leave with Fengwu and the others. If he had to choose, he would rather die than suffer from dysphoria. The man entered the passage after Fengwu and Xiazhua. Seeing that 3 people had already walked into this passage, most of the others had already chosen this path. Even if he chose by himself, he might not be able to choose the right path. It was safer to follow the group. Moreover, Fengwu had just said that choosing that path would lead to death. Although he didn't know if what she said was true or not, it was better to believe it than not. Moreover, Fengwu had already chosen a path first. Sure enough, she didn't choose the path that she said would lead to death. Fengwu's words had some effect. After all, the 40 or so people all chose the path chosen by Fengwu and Ajur. Almost no one wanted to be unconventional and choose the other path. Even the woman who had been beaten to the ground by Fengwu didn't choose that path. Everyone had a herd mentality. Everyone had chosen the same path. If she chose another path, she would have to take it alone. It was very dangerous to travel alone. Even if this woman wanted to kill Fengwu, who wanted her to make a fool of herself, she would not choose a path that was the opposite of everyone else just to vent her anger. Fengwu and Ajur didn't know about this. The two of them carefully walked through the crystal wall passage. The entire passage was silent. Because the passage was made of crystal walls, the entire passage was filled with light. Even the tools used to light the passage could be put away. The passage made of crystal walls twisted and turned. It was impossible to know how long it was or where it led to. The two of them kept walking forward. They didn't know how far they had walked, but they still didn't see the people behind them. "Fengwu, I'm sorry. I've been a burden to you." Thinking about the scene where the woman suddenly attacked him, he still felt a little uncomfortable. This was the sorrow of being powerless. The strong didn't need a reason to kill the weak. If Fengwu hadn't stopped the woman, no one would have stood up for him. "Why did you come here?" Senior Ming, she said that this place was very dangerous. Even Ajur didn't want to come here. Why did Xiazhua come here? Fengwu looked at Xiazhua in confusion. She couldn't understand why he would take the risk to come to the god tomb. "I want to find something. Something that can change fate. Change his fate, and change the fate of Heavenly Wind Continent." "What is it?" If it was anyone else, they wouldn't have asked. However, Fengwu girl didn't know much about the ways of the world. She just asked what she wanted to know. She didn't even think about whether it would make things difficult for Xiazhua. If it was someone else who asked, Xiazhua definitely wouldn't answer. However, it was Xiazhua. He couldn't not answer. The heart of water, also known as the water element heart, is a treasure formed from water elements after tens of thousands of years. My body has been weak since I was young. Although I have the talent for water magic, my talent is too low. I can't become a water magician. I don't have the talent for swordsmithing in me at all. When I heard that the water element heart might be hidden in the sea god's tomb, I decided to find it. Only by finding it can my talent for water increase. Only then can I become a water magician. The water element heart? Fengwu thought for a moment. She seemed to have read a book about the heart of 5 elements. The heart of 5 elements was a rare treasure that only appeared once in 10,000 years. Its value was comparable to a divine weapon. I'll help you find it. Fengwu heard Xiaozuo say that his body was weak and needed the water element heart to heal. From Xiaozuo's words, Fengwu knew that with the water element heart, he could become stronger. Her master said that this was a world that belonged to the strong. If one wasn't strong enough, they could become cannon fodder at any time. But what was cannon fodder? Her master didn't say clearly. Although she didn't know what cannon fodder was, she didn't want Xiaozuo to become cannon fodder. Cannon fodder must be very pitiful. This was the answer that Fengwu girl got from her master's expression when he spoke. Thank you, Fengwu. Xiaozuo was sincerely grateful. This girl obviously didn't know him for long, but she was so good to him. He was really worried that this girl would meet a bad person and not even leave a trace of her. The two of them continued to walk along the passage as they talked. It wasn't until half an hour later that a stone door about 3 meters long and 2 meters wide appeared in front of them. On both sides of the stone door, there were 10 identical murals. The murals were all of the same person, but the scenes were different. This was a human man. From the murals, it could be seen that his status was very high at that time. Chapter 366. Sitting in the little nest made of Fengwu's hair, Bao Bao was very satisfied with this little nest that he had built himself. Fengwu's hair was very soft, and Bao Bao felt very comfortable sitting on her head. He did not rule out the possibility that he would stay here for a long time. If Fengwu girl knew what Bao Bao was thinking, Bao Bao wondered what kind of reaction she would have. Bao Bao stayed on Fengwu's head obediently, showing great interest in this glowing cave. His pair of big dog eyes were staring at the entrance of the cave. Fengwu calmly pulled Xiaozuo to follow behind the group, and step by step, they carefully entered the cave. Originally, everyone was on guard, thinking that some big guy would emerge from the cave and engage in a life-and-death battle with them. Unexpectedly, after entering the cave, there was nothing but a large piece of glowing white crystal. Inside the cave, a large piece of strangely shaped crystal stood there, and the whole cave was emitting a white light, looking very beautiful. Everyone looked around the cave, and after confirming that there were no dangerous creatures, they were slightly relieved. In the innermost part of the cave, there were 2 crystal walls made of crystal. At a glance, they could not see the inside of the 2 crystal walls. The 9 turns and 18 coves in the cave could not be seen clearly at a glance. When they arrived at the 2 passages, everyone looked at each other, not knowing how to choose for a moment. There was a possibility of life and death in the 2 paths, and there was also a possibility that both paths could lead them out, but the danger was different. If it was the second path, it would be fine, but if it was the first path, if they chose the wrong one, they would really have to stay in the tomb of the sea god for the rest of their lives. While the others were in a dilemma, Fengwu stared at the 2 passages in a daze. In her eyes, the 2 paths were bloody and full of evil spirit. The evil spirit in the cave was several times stronger than outside. Fengwu did not learn much about the undead, and she did not know much about them. Most of what she knew was from Liddy. Originally, it was best to bring Liddy to a place full of evil spirit. Fengwu tried to summon Liddy, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't summon Liddy's spirit body. Both paths were filled with bloody light, but one of the paths was filled with a dense aura of death. Clearly, this path was a dead end, and anyone who entered would die. This way. Fengwu pointed at the path without any death aura and looked at everyone seriously. Little girl, why do we have to take the path you mentioned? Give us a reason first. A male swordsman rubbed his nose. He was a man who had difficulty making a choice, so he asked in confusion. Yeah, why should we listen to you? A female magician sneered. This female magician was one of the 3 women who survived. Other than Feng Wu, who was a swordswoman, the other two were magicians. Although they were both women, they were very smart. When faced with the choice of taking the water or flying to the island, both of them chose to fly over. Moreover, they really succeeded, becoming one of the only 3 women who survived. Feng Wu was the only swordswoman among the 3 women. There were already very few female swordswomen who entered the tomb of the sea god this time. There were a few who died halfway through the first stage, and only Feng Wu survived. Although only 3 women survived, they weren't very close to each other. This was the first time she heard the voices of the other 2 female magicians. "You'll die if you take this path." Feng Wu looked at the woman who spoke and felt a dense malice from her. The Feng Wu girl tilted her head. This person is so strange. Why is she looking at me like that? Of course, the woman wouldn't answer the question in the Feng Wu girl's heart. She just looked at Feng Wu and sneered. The other female magicians stood not far away and looked at the confrontation between them, but didn't say anything. There are so many of us, but we can't tell which path is the safest. How can a teenage girl like you know? The woman's voice was full of disdain and ridicule. Whether you believe it or not is your problem. Feng Wu said what she knows for the sake of everyone. If you think she's wrong, you can go in this way. No one will stop you. Xia Zhua, who had always been gentle and courteous, spoke fearlessly with a cold look in his eyes. You. The woman was furious. You overconfident piece of trash. A piece of trash like you dares to speak nonsense in front of me? You're courting death. The magic balls in the woman's hands quickly condensed as she chanted an incantation. 2 flashing white balls attacked Shouzo mercilessly. The onlookers who were watching from the side didn't expect this woman to kill people so easily. They also didn't expect this woman to be an ice magician. Ice magicians were mutated from water magicians, but they were more powerful than water magicians. There weren't many ice magicians on the continent. Compared to the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, the number of ice magicians was much lower. Although there weren't many ice magicians, every ice magician was a rare genius. They were definitely valued by the major families. Shouzo also didn't expect this woman to be so unreasonable. She directly attacked him when she couldn't win the argument. He was just an ordinary person, and it was impossible for him to dodge. He was now very glad that his family was worried that he would be in danger, so they put a lot of defensive magic items on him. Even his clothes were set up with several layers of defensive magic arrays. With these equipment, as long as he didn't meet a powerful expert, it wouldn't be easy to kill him. Just as Xia Zhua was about to receive this blow, Feng Wu unsheathed her short sword. With a flash of sword light, the 2 white light balls full of ice power were split in half. A few pieces of ice and large pieces of ice scattered on the ground. When the woman saw that Feng Wu blocked her attack so easily, her face turned red and a trace of hatred flashed in her eyes. She raised the magic staff in her hand and chanted an incantation faster and faster. A piece of ice blade condensed in the air and attacked Feng Wu and Shouzo together. The ice blade cut through the air and attacked the 2 people with murderous intent. Feng Wu pulled Shouzo to the side and dodged the first wave of attack. Then the sword in her hand danced, and the small sword emitted a light green qi. Feng Wu condensed the qi on the sword and used the spring breeze swordsmanship that she learned from by Lianfeng. Her movements were beautiful and the attack power was amazing. On the tip of Feng Wu's small sword, a green light flashed again and again. With the spring breeze swordsmanship, the large piece of ice blade was blocked by the green qi of the sword and couldn't get close. Feng Wu circulated the fighting power in her body. All the ice blades near the small sword were immediately shattered into pieces. Seeing this, the woman wanted to use a more powerful killing move, but Feng Wu didn't give her the chance. Chapter 367. The man was wearing clothes from ancient times. From the painting, one could see that the clothes were very beautiful. The man sat alone on 5 thrones. A group of men and women knelt in front of the man and kowtowed. Those people's eyes were full of worship and humility. Then, the painting started to change. There was a man riding a horse and commanding an army. There was also a man marrying a beautiful woman. Then, there were countless scary giant meteorites falling from the sky. The people in the painting were desperate and scared. Through the painting, one could almost hear their desperate cries for help. Ah! This is... That damn sea god is a selfish madman. No wonder the other gods don't want to be with him. This guy is crazy. Baby, who had been dozing off on Fengwu's head, saw the painting and started screaming. Baby! Fengwu touched its eggshell and smoothed out its fur. Is there something wrong with this place? Xiazhua knew how powerful the ancient wise beasts were. They weren't very powerful, but they were smarter than humans. If they weren't smart, they wouldn't have become wise beasts. After being smoothed out, the little thing shut up. But its voice was still very excited. Of course there is a problem. Sea God is a madman. He made a tomb like this. No wonder there is such a strong murderous aura. It would be strange if the murderous aura wasn't strong. Bao Bao was yelling and swearing, and his mouth was saying something that no one could understand. Fortunately, before Xiazhua could ask, Baby told him everything. I didn't think this place was a god's tomb. Sea God did something to it. Baby said angrily. Did something? What did Sea God do to his own tomb? Speaking of which, this was the sea god's tomb in the first place. Shouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? He couldn't figure out what Baby was angry about. The sea god mixed the tombs of the kings of the human world with his own tomb and made the dead kings become the gatekeepers of his tomb. The souls of the kings and the souls of those who were buried with them will be sealed in this place forever. Their souls will never be able to rest in peace. They will stay in the sea god's tomb and suffer. The more pain they are in, the stronger their baleful aura will be, and the more dangerous it will be for those who enter the divine tomb. If I'm not wrong, the sea god probably brought more than one tomb of the emperors. There are many more. After 10,000 years, the tombs of the human emperors have become extremely dangerous places. Once you enter, you'll definitely die. The sea god's tomb is hidden among the emperor's tombs. It's impossible to find the sea god's tomb in the emperor's tombs. Even if you do find it, you might die there. The sea god is famous for his selfishness and ruthlessness in the god realm. He would never allow his burial goods to fall into the hands of a human. Baby said something bad about sea god. Clearly, he didn't think much of sea god. Now, Shouzo was starting to believe Irene's words about Zicheng being the son of fortune and the daughter of destiny. He had heard Zicheng's friends and followers say that although Zicheng had encountered some danger when he entered the sea god's tomb, he had passed through it safely. When Zicheng entered, he didn't encounter any of the emperor's tombs. In other words, Zicheng entered the sea god's main tomb directly. Then, he saved himself from the various means left behind by the sea god and took away the precious treasures in the sea god's tomb. One of them was the water elemental heart. This time, the divine tomb opened with a lot of random people. The difficulty of entering the tomb increased a lot. Even the emperor's tombs that had never been heard of before were used. Why would the sea god do this? What's the point of him getting a bunch of emperor's tombs to guard his tomb? He's already the sea god. Why would he care about a tomb keeper like a human emperor? This was the question that Shouzo couldn't figure out the most. They were already gods, but the tomb keeper let the human emperors be the tomb keeper. He even sealed their souls. No matter how he thought about it, it was completely unnecessary. Ha ha ha, do you think gods are omnipotent? Let me tell you, no matter how powerful a god is, once he dies, his power will gradually dissipate. The reason why the sea god got these emperors' tombs and used all these means is that he hoped that when his power weakened, these emperors' tombs that were always shrouded in baleful qi could stop outsiders. There are many imprisoned souls in these emperors' tombs. No one knows where their souls are imprisoned by the sea god. As long as those souls are not destroyed, these emperors' tombs will always be a terrible place. The sea god is a god, but he did such a terrible thing. What's the difference between him and a demon? Imprisoning a person's soul for eternity just to keep them here to produce baleful qi. This was something that only an inhumane person would do. It was hard to imagine that the one who did all this was a god, and an innate god. This had completely overturned Shozo's outlook on life. So what if he's a god? Who told you that gods must have a kind heart? You've read too many myths. There are good and bad people, and gods are the same. If all gods are good, then what's the matter with the Lord of the Demon Realm? Before the Lord of the Demon Realm fell into the Demon Realm, he was an innate god of the Celestial Realm. And among the innate gods, he was one of the strongest. Even such an existence fell into the Demon Realm. Bao Bao rolled his eyes and looked at him with disdain. So he was being looked down upon by a demonic beast? Although this was a god-level intelligent beast, it still made him feel uncomfortable. He suddenly wanted to beat the dog up. Then there's an emperor's tomb behind this door. Shozo didn't want to be looked down upon by a dog with an eggshell on its head, so he decisively changed the topic. At least you're not completely stupid. Bao Bao said proudly. Ha ha. How do we enter this place? Fengwu pushed the door. The door was only 3 meters tall, but it wouldn't budge no matter how hard she tried. There should be a mechanism. Once you find the mechanism, you should be able to enter. But are you sure you want to enter the tomb with 2 people? It's very dangerous inside. The Emperor's body has probably turned into a zombie. The so-called corpse fiend was to place a corpse in an extremely ominous place filled with baleful qi. Over the years, the corpse would be eroded by the baleful qi. In the end, the baleful qi would form a new consciousness in the corpse that was filled with killing intent. This consciousness was born in the baleful qi and was born to kill. Chapter 368. The so-called zombie was a corpse that was placed in a place filled with murderous aura. Over the years, the corpse would be eroded by the murderous aura. In the end, the murderous aura would form a new consciousness in the corpse that was filled with murderous aura. This consciousness was born from the murderous aura and was born to kill. Other than killing, the corpse that had turned into a zombie did not have any consciousness. It was not an exaggeration to call it a killing machine. Damn, this passage is too long. It took us so long to walk out. A voice was approaching while cursing. Fengwu and Shozo turned around and saw a man walking towards them with a sword in his hand. This man was the one who walked in after Fengwu and Shozo. There were other voices coming from behind the man. It seemed that the people behind them were about to arrive. Shozo heaved a sigh of relief. It was good to have more people. The more people there were, the better. After hearing from Bao Bao about the dangers of this place, he and Fengwu might really die inside. I finally see the 2 of you. I didn't see the 2 of you along the way. I thought something had happened to the 2 of you. The man laughed when he saw Fengwu and Shozo. Thank you for your concern. We are fine. Shozo smiled back. What is this place? Is this the main burial chamber of the sea god's tomb? The man looked at the 3-meter-tall stone door excitedly. If it were not for the door blocking him, he would have rushed in immediately. What? We have reached the main burial chamber. We arrived so quickly. I thought we would have to go through a few levels to reach the main burial chamber. Is this really the main burial chamber of the sea god? I don't think so. Damn you. Isn't this the sea god's tomb? What's so strange about us finding the main burial chamber? The group of people at the back looked at the 3-meter-tall door and chattered non-stop. Only the woman who was taught a lesson by Fengwu not long ago was glaring at Fengwu with hatred. If looks could kill, Fengwu would have been killed countless times. Shozo felt a malicious intent coming from a certain direction. He turned around and saw the person emitting the malicious intent. Isn't this the woman who was taught a lesson by Fengwu? Xiazhua could tell that this woman hated the 2 of them, especially Fengwu. As long as this woman had the chance, she would not hesitate to kill them. Xiazhua moved his body closer to Fengwu, shielding Fengwu from that intense gaze. The woman snorted coldly and turned her head to the side. Strange, why can't I open the door? A group of people surrounded the gate, trying to open the door with brute force. They also tried to open the door with magic, but to no avail. The inconspicuous stone door was still standing there, motionless. 40 or so people stood at the entrance. They didn't know what to do once they entered. If the door couldn't be opened, they couldn't enter. It was simply wishful thinking to think that they could obtain the divine tools and sacred tools inside. Everyone, take a look at these murals. Do you think there's anything wrong with them? A magician raised his magic staff and called out. Hearing this, everyone gathered around. Only these murals looked strange in this place. Could it be that the way to open the door was in these murals? Everyone gathered together and touched the 10 murals from head to toe, trying to find a way to open the door. At this time, Feng Wu and Ajur were also looking around for a way to enter the tomb. Although this was only an emperor's tomb and not the tomb of the sea god, they still had to go. Even if they knew, they had no choice but to move forward. After all, this was the only way to leave this place. If they wanted to go to the real sea god's tomb, they would have to go through one emperor's tomb after another until they found the real one. Feng Wu, come over here and look at this wall. After knocking on the wall for a long time, Shouzo found a hollow wall and immediately called Feng Wu over. The passageway was only so big, so everyone could hear him. Xiaozu's shouts were naturally heard by others as well. Those who heard him immediately gave up on studying the murals and ran behind Xiaozu. There were even a few bad-tempered ones who directly kicked Xiaozu away, almost causing him to fall to the ground. Feng Wu caught Xiaozu in the blink of an eye and stopped him from falling to the ground. Feng Wu's eyes flashed with anger. Bad guy, bullying Shouzo. Feng Wu girl was angry. She lifted her leg and wanted to teach the person who almost caused Shouzo to fall to the ground a lesson. Shouzo hurriedly pulled Feng Wu back. Don't go, I'm fine. He looked at Feng Wu and shook his head. Feng Wu bit her lips and nodded in the end. She didn't want to cause trouble for that person. This stone wall is hollow. Let's take a look. Maybe the mechanism is in this stone wall. The person standing at the front spat on his hands. Rubbing his hands together, he grabbed his large sword and slashed at the stone wall. After a few slashes, a small hole appeared on the stone wall. Inside the hole was a disc-shaped object. This object was installed in the wall. They didn't know if it was the mechanism they were looking for. Someone tried to turn the disc-shaped object. Sure enough, it worked. There was a rumbling sound, followed by the sound of chains turning. In the quiet passageway, it was ear-piercing. The door slowly opened amidst the rumbling sound. At the same time, the other adventurers in the Supreme Emperor's tomb also encountered various problems. Zicheng and Kai San had already entered the Supreme Emperor's tomb before Feng Wu. They encountered a large group of zombies in the tomb and were now fighting with a group of zombies. Ming Shi brought the divine beast seven-colored phoenix and used its phoenix fire to burn many zombies. His unstoppable strength made the people who entered the tomb with him revere him. They simply treated him as a killing god. Irene and Elisa's side was also quite smooth. Ever since Irene received God's inheritance in the two-realm battlefield, her strength had increased greatly. Ordinary people really couldn't beat her. In addition, she was familiar with the plot and obtained many opportunities that belonged to others in advance. Protecting her own safety was definitely not a problem. As a little princess, Elisa had many good things on her. In addition, she was also a powerful magic caster. She also met Irene, so everything went very smoothly. Although many people who entered the tomb with them died, Irene and Elisa were fine except for some injuries. Margaret and Matson, the siblings, were unlucky not to be in the same tomb. After kicking a bored man who tried to flirt with her to the wall, Margaret clapped her hands and sized up the tomb that she had just entered. Chapter 369. The siblings, Margaret and Matson, were unlucky enough not to be buried in the same tomb. After kicking a bored man who tried to flirt with her to the wall, Margaret clapped her hands and looked around the tomb that she had just entered. If this was the main tomb of the sea god, she would rather write her name backwards. When they saw the scene of a cute girl beating up a big guy, they both made the decision to stay away from this girl. Speaking of which, where were the others? Where were they? Do you dare to answer if I call you? The door slowly opened. Because it had not been open for a long time, a large cloud of dust came out as soon as it opened. Fengwu waved her hand and created a combat energy shield for herself and Shouzo to protect them from the dust. The door is open. Haha, all the good things in here belong to LZ. No one can fight with LZ. Divine weapon. There must be a divine weapon in here. As the tomb opened, there seemed to be the light of a treasure shining inside. Under the light of the treasure, the greed in the hearts of the humans was completely drawn out. The heart of water. It must be inside. I'm going to find the heart of water. The heart of water is mine. No one can snatch it from me. Xiaozuo's eyes were filled with madness. He pushed Fengwu away and was about to charge forward. Fengwu frowned when she saw this. She channeled a trace of pure sword energy and shot it into Shouzo's forehead. Shouzo's expression was a little dazed. What just happened? Are you okay? Fengwu patted his face and asked with concern. What happened? Shouzo noticed that the crowd around him had gone crazy. His eyes flashed with shock. What was going on? How could these people suddenly lose their minds and rush forward? You were controlled by the greed in your heart, as expected of a fish-lipped human. Other than Fengwu, this silly girl, who doesn't have any greed in her heart, everyone here has greed. No wonder you were affected. Bao Bao laid on Fengwu's head and bit on Fengwu's hair as he looked at the crazy crowd with disdain. Greed. There's something wrong with that light. The moment the door opened, everyone felt a ray of light shining on them. He remembered that when he saw the ray of light, his consciousness began to fade. Of course. That light can magnify the greed in people's hearts. In other words, if you only have 10 points in your heart, it can magnify it to 100. Although you have greed in your heart, you don't have any ill intentions. Although this light will affect you, it won't be a big problem. As for those people, do you see it? In addition to magnifying the greed in their hearts, even their evil thoughts have been magnified. Even killing and seizing treasures have begun in advance. Bao Bao said as if he was watching a good show. In front of the door, a group of people were fighting, not willing to let anyone enter first. Everyone felt that the treasures inside belonged to them alone. Anyone who wanted to enter the tomb was robbing them and had to be killed. In front of the door, a fierce battle had begun. People were constantly injured and bleeding, but no one cried out in pain or retreated. Their eyes were red with killing intent, and their hearts were controlled by greed and evil thoughts. Xiao Chun. A silver ancient sword appeared in Fengwu's hand. This sword was the pure sword. The pure sword had already felt the billowing killing intent in this place. The entire sword was drooling at the killing intent. If it wasn't for Fengwu holding it down, it would have rushed out to eat. Go wake them up, Fengwu said to Xiaochun. Xiaozuo looked curiously at the spiritual sword in front of him. This couldn't be a sacred weapon, right? It was so spiritual. It wasn't that Xiaozuo's family didn't have any sacred weapons. He was no stranger to sacred weapons, but this was the first time he had seen one with such spirituality. Obviously, this sword couldn't have any expression, but he could still feel the sword's disappointment under Fengwu's order. It seemed like it wanted to eat a big meal, but Fengwu only gave it porridge and side dishes. Did a sword need to eat? He must be hallucinating because he wasn't fully awake yet. Although Xiaochun wanted to eat a big meal, he didn't dare to disobey Fengwu's order. He could only obediently release his energy to wake these people up from their greed and evil thoughts. Xiaochun was indeed the purest and most flawless divine artifact in the world. Just a sliver of its power was enough to awaken these fellows who had fallen into madness. What's wrong with me? Who attacked me? Who hurt LZ? Come out. I promise I won't beat you to death. Ow. Ouch, it hurts. Which damn bastard dared to stab me in the ass? Don't let LZ know who it is, or LZ will kill you. 8 out of 10 people who woke up were injured. They couldn't remember how they were injured. Although they were cursing, their hearts were filled with shock. They knew that they had been tricked. Fortunately, They woke up in time. If they were late, they might have lost half their lives here. There must be something wrong with that light. These people weren't stupid. They quickly found the root of the problem. I think so too. I don't know what that light is. I only saw it once and I felt dizzy. Then I couldn't remember anything. Me too. That light was King Evil. Huh. I say, why are the two of you completely fine? In a group of people who were bleeding and injured, it was difficult not to attract attention when two people were standing in perfect condition. Even their clothes were not wrinkled. Therefore, Fengwu and Shouzo quickly attracted the attention of others. It couldn't be helped. Although their clothes were not spotless, compared to the others, they were unbelievably clean. There wasn't even a trace of blood on them. Wasn't it obvious that there was something wrong with the two of them? Did you do it? So many of us have lost consciousness. Why are you all fine? Did you want to take the treasure for yourself? So you deliberately hurt us. The person who shouted was none other than the female magician who was taught a lesson by Fengwu. This woman wanted to kill Fengwu for a long time. Of course, she would use such a good opportunity to deal with the woman who made her lose face in front of so many people. Heh, you really dare. Xiaozuo wanted to laugh at her. This woman was simply too annoying. Xiaozuo rarely allowed himself to hate someone because he didn't want to live his life in hatred. However, he didn't have a good impression of this woman. If Fengwu wanted to kill her, he would raise both hands and feet to support it. I didn't do it, Fengwu said seriously. Chapter 370. Why did this person accuse her and Xiaozuo of doing it? She and Xiaozuo clearly didn't do anything. The Fengwu girl bit her lips, feeling wronged. She had asked Xiaochun to save someone, but she was wrongly accused by the person she saved. The Fengwu girl felt uncomfortable and wanted to hit someone. Don't think that everything will be fine if you deny it. If you say that you didn't do it, then why did all of us get hit but you two are fine? Does that make sense? The woman smiled viciously. If it wasn't for Fengwu saving you, you would have already killed each other. Jumping out to accuse your savior as soon as you were saved, you really are shameless. Xiaogu was very angry, feeling indignant for Fengwu. If he had known earlier, he would have saved this woman and let her go crazy. That way, he wouldn't have been bitten by her. When everyone heard Xiaozuo's words, they were shocked. It was hard to imagine that the person who saved them was this black-haired girl. It was too hard to believe that this little loli could save them. Thinking of this, everyone's eyes couldn't help but show a trace of suspicion. Seeing that no one believed him, Xiaozuo was slightly angry. These people were really ingrates. He might as well not have saved them. Do you know what that light was? Xiaozuo smiled coldly. What is it? Someone couldn't help but ask. That light can magnify the negative energy in a person's heart. For example, greed and evil thoughts. When we were hit by that light, our greed and evil thoughts were magnified at the same time. That's why everyone lost their minds and attacked the people around them. Because everyone wanted to monopolize the treasure, they killed everyone they saw. I was also controlled by greed. Fortunately, Fengwu was beside me and saved me in time. Otherwise, I would have been like everyone else and killed each other. With my strength, if I had rushed in front of everyone, I would have died. You said that she saved you? What did she use to save you? The woman said arrogantly, her cold face full of suspicion. Why should I tell you? Xiaozuo looked up with disdain. You. The woman was infuriated. A normal person dared to give her such a look? If she didn't kill this guy, she wouldn't be human. Everyone, let's hurry up and recover. Now that the tomb door has been opened, we should continue moving forward and not listen to others arguing over a guess. A swordsman with a long sword said. They were here to hunt for treasures. Who had the time to listen to other people's quarrels? The others thought the same and nodded their heads. Then, they each took out the medicine they carried with them to treat their injuries. Are you going to let these two despicable bastards go just like that? The woman screamed in disbelief. The others continued to heal themselves and ignored her. However, the man who had spoken first, Boucher, turned around and glanced at her. Please settle your personal grudges. Don't treat others as fools. The woman's face immediately turned red and white. The others who were watching this scene sneered in their hearts. This woman really thought that they didn't know what she was thinking. Wasn't it just that she couldn't deal with the black-haired lowly and wanted everyone to stand on her side and help her? It was a good idea, but it depended on whether they were willing to cooperate or not. There were very few idiots who could reach this stage except for that woman. Who would be willing to make enemies for a stranger they had never met before? Xia Zhua was happy to see that the woman was defeated. He found a place to sit down with Feng Wu and started eating. He felt that the meat bun in his hand had become even more delicious. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, the woman lowered her head and her eyes were filled with hatred. Just you wait. You people who look down on me can be smug. Don't let her find a chance. Otherwise, I'll make sure you all die a horrible death. Anyone who dares to look down on the Lianye family can go to hell. This woman was from a side branch of the Lianye family. The sixth elder of the Lianye family, Shiat, who had died at the hands of Skycliffe, was her father. Her name was Bess. She had always relied on her relationship with Shiat to do whatever she wanted in the Lianye family. Other than the direct descendants of the family and the children of the other elders, she didn't need to give face to anyone. But some time ago, her good days came to an end. Shiat was killed. Without his protection, those who had been bullied by her in the past had been looking for opportunities to take revenge. There was once when she was surrounded by the daughter of the ninth elder, who used to be inferior to her. She almost died in their hands. Fortunately, she still had some tricks up her sleeve. Her father doted on her a lot and left her a lot of good things so that she wouldn't be killed so easily. She killed the ninth elder's daughter and her followers instead, becoming a traitor of the Lianye family. But Bess didn't regret it. What was the point of staying in a family that couldn't protect her? If the Lianye family really cared about her father's achievements, they wouldn't have let the ninth elder's daughter cause trouble for her, causing her status in the family to plummet. In fact, the Lianye family wasn't that heartless. Even if the sixth elder was dead, Bess was still a rare ice magus. She was also considered a genius in the family, so the Lianye family wouldn't give up on such a talent. The monthly allowance and potions that she was supposed to receive were not reduced. It was just that the potions and money that Shiat used to give her were no longer available. But Bess blamed the family for the money that Shiat gave her. She thought that since her father had sacrificed himself for the Lianye family, she should be treated the same as her father before he died. Since her father couldn't give her any more money, the Lianye family should take the initiative to do so. If they didn't do so, they would be heartless. And what she thought of being bullied for revenge was even more nonsense. Other than the ninth elder's daughter who wanted to take the opportunity to punish Bess because she had been bullied by her in the past, the other people's attitude towards her was at most not as fearful as before. Those who tried to curry favor with her also left. There was no other bullying. The main reason was that she couldn't accept such a difference in treatment. She had never suffered a little. Others just changed their attitude towards her. Although they would occasionally say a few words to her, but when it came to offending her, no one would do so. Everyone knew that Bess had high potential and was also an ice magus. In the future, she might even have a seat in the Elders' Council. As long as they weren't stupid, they wouldn't offend her. It was only because she was too fragile that she couldn't bear the slightest grievance. Later, she killed the ninth elder's daughter, became a traitor, and fled from the Lianye family. After Bess fled from the Lianye family, she had been traveling alone in the Great Evils, looking for the murderer of her father. Unfortunately, she couldn't find Skycliffe no matter how many times she searched. Instead, she found Feng Wu and Ming Shi. For these people who were with Skycliffe, the Lianye family had already investigated them thoroughly. They even drew portraits of them, so Bess could easily recognize Feng Wu and the others. Chapter 371. Although the Lianye family had investigated that those people were the students of Notre Dame du Starlight, there were a few people who couldn't find out their identity. Every time they checked, there was a secret force to prevent them from investigating, which made the Lienya family not dare to make a move easily. The identity of Ming Shi and Skycliffe was very mysterious. They spent a lot of money but couldn't find anything. However, other people, including Feng Wu, were investigated. Feng Wu's identity as the Feng family's first daughter was also dug out. It could be said that except for Ming Shi and Skycliffe, the identity of other people was almost investigated. Although Feng Wu was the Feng family's first daughter, according to their investigation, the Feng family had already abandoned her. An unmarried and pregnant first daughter, who would dare to take in such a person who was abandoned by the family? Even if her previous identity was prominent, the Lienya family wouldn't put her in their eyes. When Biska saw Feng Wu, she had already made up her mind to kill her. Even Ming Shi was on her kill list. But through the investigation of the Lienya family, Biska felt that Ming Shi's identity was very complicated. She didn't know if killing him would cause unnecessary trouble. Ming Shi couldn't make a move for a while, so Feng Wu became an important person to attract Biska's firepower. Along the way, whenever she had the opportunity, she would find trouble with Feng Wu. If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't want to kill in front of these people, she would have already killed Feng Wu to avenge her father. After an hour of rest and recovery, everyone's injuries had been treated. Now, what they had to do was to enter the tomb. Behind the stone door, it was dark. It was very different from the outside. Outside the stone door, there was a shining crystal wall that brought light to everyone. But behind the stone door, there seemed to be nothing. There was nothing to light up, and nothing could be seen. Taking out the magic props for illumination, everyone walked into the stone door with vigilance. Just as the first person walking in front stepped into the stone door, suddenly, there was a bright light. Behind the stone door was a spacious hall. There were 4 pillars in the hall, and in the center of the hall were 2 stone coffins. The sarcophagus looked ancient and grand, but the craftsmanship was crude. It could be seen that the person inside the sarcophagus didn't have a high status. On top of each of the 4 pillars, there was a 7-star lamp. Now, the 7-star lamp was permanently lit. Although the light was not as dazzling as the crystal outside, the basic illumination was not a problem. Around the hall, there were several huge murals. The murals were similar to the ones outside, but on the murals, there was a huge stone statue. The person on the stone statue was a man with rough facial features. The man held a scepter in his hand. He looked noble and extraordinary, and his eyes were filled with contempt for all living beings. Look, aren't the people on these murals the sea god? Someone pointed at the murals with stone carvings and said with uncertainty, "It's possible." The sea god was a god worshipped by all the countries on the sea at that time. "The statue on this painting is most likely the sea god," someone replied. At this time, a man with a double axe walked between the 2 sarcophagus and began to open the lid of one of the sarcophagus. "What are you doing?" Seeing the man's actions, everyone asked in surprise. "Do you even need to say it?" "Of course, I'm opening the sarcophagus to see if there are any treasures inside. This is the tomb of the sea god. Even if it's just a small character buried with him, there must be a lot of good things in the sarcophagus. Don't tell me you don't want it." The man looked at the people who were glaring at him with disdain. "If I were you, I wouldn't touch the things in the tomb." Shouzo suddenly spoke at this time. Everyone turned to look at Shouzo and Feng Wu, who were standing not far from the door. Shouzo was probably the weakest of all, so he had been ignored by everyone. He usually didn't take the initiative to speak. Except for Bess, who had been looking for opportunities to deal with him and Feng Wu, no one would pay extra attention to an ordinary person like him. Now that he suddenly spoke, everyone was a little surprised. "Pretty boy, you don't have the right to speak here." The man with the axe seemed to be disdainful of Shouzo. He couldn't stand other people's hypocrisy. They were obviously here for the treasure. What was wrong with opening the sarcophagus? When the treasure was discovered, these people would be more excited than him. As for Shouzo, the man didn't care at all. Shouzo was just a pretty boy who relied on women to survive. Who would care about this kind of man? Such obvious disdain, he believed that anyone could see it. However, Shozo didn't say anything because of the man's disdain and contempt. This place has long been set up as a place to cultivate corpses. The corpse in the sarcophagus has already become a zombie. Once the sarcophagus is opened, the consequences will be unimaginable. Shozo said with a serious face. Unfortunately, not many people believed his words. Cultivating corpses with evil. If there really was an evil aura, why couldn't the others find it? Why did a piece of trash like you find it? Are you kidding me? If they really couldn't even compare to an ordinary person, they could just go and die. Because he was confident in his own strength, no one believed his words. Instead, they thought Shozo was just trying to please the crowd. Bess didn't hide her ridicule. He really overestimated himself. A mere ordinary person wanted to show off in front of a group of strong people. How ridiculous. Fengwu silently looked at the group. She could see that these people didn't believe Shozo's words. Shozo obviously didn't lie, so why didn't they want to believe him? Don't joke around. Cultivating corpses with evil aura. Who do you think you are? How can you tell if this is a place to cultivate corpses with evil aura? The man sneered and continued what he was doing. He had long been excited by the treasure in his imagination. How could he have the time to care about a piece of trash? Shozo sighed and didn't try to convince them. He knew that it was useless to say anything now. He didn't have much hope in the first place, so he wasn't too disappointed. The sarcophagus will be opened soon. What should we do now? Shozo looked at Fengwu. As the only fighting force in their temporary team, Fengwu was the one who made the decision. Fengwu blinked her big eyes, as if asking Shozo why he was asking her. No matter who she teamed up with, Fengwu was never the one who came up with ideas. She was used to just following orders. Suddenly, someone came to ask her for her opinion. This girl felt a little strange. Run to the back of the hall later, Bao Bao, who was sitting on Fengwu's hair, interrupted before Fengwu could speak. Shozo glanced at Bao Bao and nodded, indicating that he understood. Chapter 372. Fengwu watched the man open the coffin. If he didn't listen to Xia Zhua, something bad would definitely happen. The Fengwu girl bit her lip. She could already see the baleful aura coming out of the coffin. Everyone was paying attention to the man's movements. The weapons in their hands were already tightly gripped in their hands. If the man really opened up a treasure, a great battle would begin. Even Bess aimed her staff at the man. As soon as the treasure appeared, she would immediately attack the man. Finally, the lid of the coffin was pushed open by the man. As soon as the lid was opened, the others immediately went forward to see what was inside. When they went forward to take a look, they saw a beautiful girl in a beautiful dress. The girl looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. She was beautiful and lively, and her skin was as white as jade. Her lips had a touch of bright red, looking very attractive. The white dress she was wearing was very gorgeous. It seemed to be some kind of sacrificial dress. The girl wore a silver bracelet on her body and a string of copper bells on her waist. Other than these, there were no other extra accessories. Although the girl had been dead for many years, her body didn't seem to have changed at all. Time seemed to have stopped at her most beautiful moment. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't feel her breathing, everyone would have thought that the girl was just sleeping. Who would have thought that this was a female corpse that had been dead for many years? How is this possible? The sea god's tomb came from the primordial era. Tens of thousands of years have passed since the primordial era. How can the corpse not rot after tens of thousands of years? Someone exclaimed when they saw the young girl's skin. That's right. It's impossible for the corpse to remain the same for tens of thousands of years. Although this coffin looks good, it's not a treasure. It can't preserve the corpse for so long without decomposing. Could it be that this girl really has some kind of treasure that can preserve her body for tens of thousands of years? As this speculation was voiced out, the eyes of the man who opened the coffin lit up. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. Wasn't it true? If there wasn't a treasure, how could the corpse not decompose for tens of thousands of years? The man immediately stretched out his hand and touched the female corpse's body. A rough hand constantly groped the female corpse's body. What are you doing? You won't even let the female corpse go. Are you that thirsty? One of the men behind the man looked at the man as if he was a pervert. Can't you see? He's looking for a treasure that can prevent the corpse from rotting. Another person next to the man said with a smile. The two people who spoke were still very young. They didn't seem to be over 30 years old. Judging from their clothes, their family background should be quite good. Therefore, they weren't interested in the treasure that could prevent the corpse from decomposing. Don't let him take all the benefits. There's still another sarcophagus. Let's open it first. Someone was envious of the man who had opened the sarcophagus. He immediately thought of another sarcophagus that could be opened for treasure hunting. After being reminded, everyone remembered that there was indeed a stone coffin where they could find treasures. Because the man didn't encounter any danger after opening the sarcophagus, these people became bolder and put all their thoughts on treasure hunting. Under everyone's efforts, the other sarcophagus was opened. This time, a well-dressed youth appeared in the sarcophagus. The youth was very delicate and handsome. His skin was as smooth and delicate as the girl's. Not even a single pore could be seen. Looking at it now, he was a proper little fresh meat. The youth's clothes were exactly the same as the girl's. There was also a string of copper bells on the youth's body. Other than that, there were no other ornaments. Everyone was delighted. Great, this corpse didn't change. This meant that there was also a treasure on this corpse. What were they waiting for? Let's find it. The group of men began to touch the youth's corpse, trying to find the treasure they imagined. This group of people acted as if they hadn't seen a woman for more than 10 years. They stretched out their perverted hands towards the youth's corpse. Ah! At this time, a scream suddenly sounded. The people who were stripping off the youth's clothes turned around and saw that the people who were originally surrounding the man had all scattered. As for the man who was insignificant just now, his heart had been grabbed out by a jade-white hand. The one who did it was actually the female corpse that had been dead for 10,000 years. The female corpse that was originally sleeping in the sarcophagus had opened her eyes. Her eyes were actually crimson red. As long as one looked into her eyes, they seemed to be able to see a boundless sea of corpses and the painful wails of the dead souls. The man's heart was in her hand. There was a large hole in his chest. When the girl pulled out the heart, she could see the scene in front of the man through the hole. The corpse has changed. It was unknown who cried out. From the woman killing the man, to them retreating reflexively, to someone screaming in fear, all of this happened in an instant. But for those who had experienced it, it felt like a long time had passed. Be careful, don't touch that string of copper bells. Someone suddenly thought of something and shouted. But it was still too late. Among the group of people who were groping the youth's corpse, one of them had already grabbed the copper bells. Although he couldn't feel any magic fluctuations from the bells and could tell that it wasn't a magic tool, the fact that the bells appeared on the two corpses meant that they had a history. He could take it down and study it. Just as that person was about to take the bells, the man who was killed happened to be frightened. When the other man shouted that he couldn't touch the bells were accidentally pulled out by that person. The moment the bells were pulled out, the youth suddenly opened his eyes. As for the man who pulled out the bells, he didn't even have time to scream before he followed in the footsteps of the man whose heart was pulled out. Everyone, let's do it together. The two corpses' sudden display of power did indeed startle everyone, but everyone here was someone who had walked through mountains of swords and seas of fire. After a short moment of panic, everyone immediately raised their weapons to face the enemy. The swordmasters raised their weapons and slashed at the two corpses. The two ancient corpses, one male and one female, only lightly waved their hands, and dozens of men were sent flying. This strength is too great. What the hell is this thing? I clearly hit her just now, but it felt like I was hitting a big rock. It's so hard. The people who were sent flying fell to the ground and wailed. They couldn't believe that there were corpses in this world that could be so powerful. Just a wave of the corpses could send so many people flying. They couldn't help but admire this strength. Chapter 373. Since the swordmasters were useless, the magicians began to attack. A series of spells hit the two corpses. The two corpses were pushed back a few steps, but they were not hurt at all. The two corpses were filled with murderous intent. They could see nothing but the instinct to kill. Everyone was on high alert and ready to fight at any time. They were afraid of the two corpses. Everyone, let's find a way to leave this hall first. At this time, no one wanted to fight with the two corpses. Since they could not win, they had to run. Were they going to stay here and fight? Let's go. Xiaozuo grabbed Feng Wu's hand and the two of them ran to the back of the hall. With a large group of people attracting the two corpses' attention, they were able to escape successfully. They did not encounter any obstacles. Damn! That gigolo ran too fast. Those who were still looking for an opportunity to slip away all cursed in their hearts. So many of them were risking their lives here, but the gigolo ran away with the black-haired lowly. That detestable animal, running away so quickly. Did he have any shame? Xiaozuo did not know that he had pulled down the bottom line in these people's hearts. Even if he knew, he would not care. Feng Wu and Xiaozuo ran forward one after another. The two corpses were too strong. Even the Feng Wu girl did not want to fight with them. Originally, Xiaochun's purification ability could purify the evil spirits, but the evil spirits here were not ordinary. Bao Bao did not recommend her to use Xiaochun's power to purify the evil spirits here. The source of the evil spirits here must be found. Before the source was found, even if Feng Wu purified the evil spirits, there would be an endless amount of evil spirits being drawn into the tomb. Bao Bao did not want Feng Wu to waste her time, so he used telepathy to tell Feng Wu not to use the pure sword's power to purify this place. Speaking of the pure sword, Bao Bao had a lot of questions. He knew that the pure sword was the weapon of the pure goddess. Legend has it that the pure goddess fell in love with a man she shouldn't have fallen in love with. In order to not let her heart become ugly, she used her pure heart as the main material while her heart was still pure. At the same time, she found many materials in the god realm and made a divine sword. This sword was the pure sword. The pure goddess took the pure sword to find the man. The man's identity was not ordinary. There were even legends that said that the man was a demon god. In his inheritance, he remembered that at that time, there were gods who said that it was a conspiracy of the demon realm. They wanted the pure goddess to lose her pure heart and the power to purify everything. At that time, the demons would be even more fearless. For this purpose, someone in the demon realm disguised himself as a god and made the pure goddess fall in love with him. The pure goddess later found out about this scheme, so she used her pure heart to create the pure sword. The pure sword would never be tainted and had the power to purify all evil. With the pure sword, the pure goddess and the man fought for 3 days and 3 nights on the border between the god realm and the demon realm. In the end, no one knew the result. Some people said that they died together. Some people said that the pure goddess finally died in the man's hands and the pure sword's whereabouts were unknown. Bao Bao did not expect that something like the pure sword, which could only be seen in legends, would appear in the hands of a normal person like Feng Wu. This was simply too inconceivable. Moreover, the pure sword's spirit loved Feng Wu so much. It knew that the pure sword was a divine weapon that could not be used by evil people. Only a person with a pure heart was qualified to be its master. Feng Wu could become the master of the pure sword. Her heart must be pure. Even Bao Bao himself liked to stay by her side, which was obvious. It felt that Feng Wu seemed to have a secret, but as for what the secret was, Bao Bao did not know. Its ability was to predict the future. Because it was still young, its strength was half-baked. It could not accurately predict what it wanted to predict. If its ability was to know everything, as long as it knew what had happened, then it must have stopped Feng Wu from entering the tomb as early as it knew about this trip. It was useless to think too much now. Feng Wu took Shouzo and Bao Bao quickly ran to the end of the road. They did not expect that the end of the road would be a cliff. The road was on the other side of the cliff. If they wanted to go, the only way was to jump over the cliff. I'll take you there. Fengwu grabbed Shouzo's hand and wanted to fly over with him. Although the distance between the two sides of the cliff was far, there were several stone pillars in the middle that could be stepped on. There was no problem flying over with Qinggong. Shouzo was about to nod. No. Baobao's voice suddenly interrupted. Do you think that the sea god will let you go so easily? If I'm not wrong, there is a formation between the two cliffs. Once someone wants to fly over, their ability will be immediately sealed by the formation. Think about it, when you fly in the air and suddenly can't use any ability, what will happen? Baobao was a wise beast. Its little brain had always been very smart. In addition to the knowledge passed down from generation to generation, it was much better than Fengwu, a girl who had transmigrated, and Shouzo, a reborn genius who had stayed at home for hundreds of years. Fengwu and Ajur could not help but imagine the scene. They imagined themselves falling down the cliff halfway and falling into pieces. They swallowed their saliva. That scene was too beautiful. It was better not to think about it. Baobao is so smart. Fengwu girl touched the eggshell on Baobao's head. Her eyes were shining as she praised. That's right. Don't you know who I am? I am the most intelligent magical beast in the world. There is nothing that can stop me. If it wasn't for the fact that Xia Zhua was still around, it would have definitely taken out its identity as the wise beast to show off. Unfortunately, Baobao could not know that its identity as a wise beast had long been lost. Shouzo, of course, would not take the initiative to say that he knew its identity. This matter was related to the secret of his rebirth. Of course, he could not say it. What do we do now? There is no bridge in the middle. There is no way to cross. Without magic and Do Qi, they could only rely on their own strength. But no matter how strong their body was, it was impossible to jump over the cliff. There was no bridge, and they could not use their strength to fly over. They would be trapped to death. Chapter 374. At this time, a shout came from not far away. Hurry up! Damn it, there's no road ahead. Get out of here, the two monsters are coming. Let's hope that the binding scroll can last a little longer. Let's get out of here before they break free. Behind Fengwu and Shouzo, a long line of people rushed over, talking non-stop as they ran. The panic in their eyes was almost tangible. Damn it, there's no road ahead. The cliff successfully blocked the group of people who had just escaped from the hands of the ancient zombies. Fortunately, we still have the flight scroll. Many people had already taken out the flight scroll, wanting to fly over the cliff. Stop, don't do this if you don't want to die. Shouzo quickly stopped these people. Boy, what are you doing? Don't block our escape, that monster is about to catch up. Shouzo's obstruction immediately caused these people to shout in dissatisfaction. There's a formation at the bottom of this cliff. Once someone tries to use magic or Do Qi to fly over here, all their power will be sealed and they will fall from here. Shouzo was not a person who would not help others. Although these people's attitude towards him was not friendly, he also did not want to see so many of them die under this cliff for no reason. Is this true? This was serious. Although they looked down on Shouzo's weak and almost non-existent strength, they did not dare to ignore this news. If this news was false, it would not be so bad, but if it was true, then if they wanted to fly over, wouldn't they die without a doubt? Some people were skeptical of Shouzo's words, and some did not believe it at all, but these people put down the flight scroll that was about to be successfully activated. Stop spouting nonsense. I think the two of you just can't get over it. That's why you want all of us to die with you. Bess provoked again. This girl would not let go of any opportunity to make Fengwu and the others suffer. Bess looked down on men like Shouzo who only knew how to rely on women to protect him from the bottom of her heart. She did not believe what Shouzo said at all, of course. The more important reason was that she did not trust anyone related to Fengwu. If you don't believe me, you can try activating the flight scroll. Although Shozo didn't want to see them die, he wouldn't stop someone from courting death. Not to mention, this person was Bess, who had been causing trouble for them and tried to kill him. Bess's eyes drifted away. She wanted to use the scroll to directly slap him in the face, but looking at this kid's fearless look, it seemed like he really had something to say. Could it be that what he said was true? Bess couldn't help but wonder. As for the method of activating the scroll and testing it on herself, Bess didn't intend to let herself take such a risk. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to do. At this moment, a bold person stood out and looked at Xia Zhua, who was obviously a weakling, with disdain. "LZ, I don't believe it. I'm going to try it today." Just when everyone thought that this guy would directly use a flight scroll to fly over, he unexpectedly took out a rope and tied it around his waist. He tied one end of the rope to a big rock nearby. Watching the tall and strong man make a full set of safety measures for himself, everyone blinked. Sure enough, you can't judge a book by its cover. Don't look at the impulsive boorish appearance of this guy. In fact, there was a fine point in his rough appearance. Look at her heroic posture when she tied up the rope, her heroic spirit when she activated the flight scroll, and her graceful posture when she was falling down. This was... "People up there, don't just stand there, quickly help pull me up." The man's voice came from the bottom of the cliff. "Quickly, quickly, quickly pull him up." After hurriedly pulling him up, the man untied the rope tied around his waist, patted his butt and stood up. After LZ's personal test, this kid really didn't lie. You don't need to say that, we all saw it. Everyone ridiculed in their hearts. What should we do now? How do we go over? This question appeared in everyone's mind at the same time. If they couldn't go over, then they could only wait for death. When the two ferocious ancient corpses came over, they would definitely be killed. That death would be too miserable. Fortunately, this problem didn't bother everyone for too long, and a smart person came up with an idea. The one who came up with the idea was the female magician who hadn't spoken a word. This magician had been very quiet on the way, and this was the first time she made her presence felt. The female magician had an eagle-type magic beast, and the idea she came up with was to use her magic beast to tie the rope to the opposite side, then they would step on the rope to go over. Although they couldn't use any magic or do chi, it wasn't difficult to maintain balance on the rope. This idea was unanimously approved by everyone. When choosing the rope, they specially chose a thick and strong one, which was safer. Because of the help of the female magician's magic beast, the rope was quickly tied. The female magician was the first to walk over. Her sense of balance was very good, and it wasn't difficult for her to step on the rope over the cliff. When she walked to the opposite side, it proved that this idea was feasible, and everyone lined up one by one to go over. At most, this rope could only be used by 2 people at a time. If there were more people, it would affect the balance. Fengwu and Xia Zhua didn't fight to be the first to line up, because they didn't fight for a position, they were the last to line up. Everyone walked very fast, and not long after, the second-to-last group was already standing on the rope and walking to the opposite side. At this time, a roar was heard, and a man and woman with a delicate face slowly walked towards them. These 2 people were the 2 ancient corpses. The ancient corpses actually chased after them, and the people standing on the opposite side of the cliff trembled with fear. They were very lucky to have lined up in a good position, and escaped the evil claws of the ancient corpses. The second-last group hadn't gone very far yet, and Fengwu was the only one who could fight on the edge of the cliff. "Retreat, hide." Fengwu withdrew the short sword in her hand, and a silver long sword appeared in her hand. This sword was pure sword, and Fengwu slowly unsheathed it, facing the male and female ancient corpses. "Be careful." Xia Zhua nodded, and said worriedly, "N." Fengwu responded, and took the initiative to attack the 2 ancient corpses. The surrounding sword chi was like a rainbow. Fengwu's sword intent was the natural sword intent, and her sword intent carried the vitality of all things, but in the vitality, there was a trace of death chi. From life to death, it was a natural reincarnation, and some people said that nature was actually reincarnation, and Fengwu's sword intent carried the meaning of reincarnation. Because Fengwu's strength was far from pure sword, Fengwu rarely used pure sword to attack herself. Her strength was still too low for pure sword, and when she controlled pure sword to attack, the purifying power of pure sword would be affected by her strength. Chapter 375. However, the pure sword was still a weapon. She had to learn how to unleash the power of the pure sword by herself, and not let the pure sword freely unleash its power. This was not a good thing for Fengwu or the pure sword. Before leaving Notre Dame du Starlight, her master had told her to properly learn how to control the pure sword's power. Although the pure sword was very powerful now, it was still a weapon. A weapon could only unleash its greatest power in the hands of a person. Even if the pure sword looked very powerful now, it was still unable to unleash its greatest power. What it needed was its master to unleash its power. Fengwu hadn't had a chance to practice with the pure sword during this period of time. Now she had a chance to practice with the pure sword. Fengwu used the pure sword to fight against the enemy. The onlookers on the other side of the cliff watched with trepidation. No one thought that Fengwu would be able to survive against such a ferocious ancient corpse alone. It was really a pity. Such a beautiful and cute loli was ruthlessly killed by 2 ancient corpses. Just now, they had more than 40 people besieging an ancient corpse. They sacrificed at least 6 people to fight for a chance to escape. Now, Fengwu was facing the ancient corpses alone. The result was obvious without thinking. Among so many people, only Xia Zhuo was worried about Fengwu. Xia Zhuo didn't think that Fengwu would die here so easily. To become the master of the wise beast, it was impossible for her to die so easily. He was also the only one who thought that Fengwu wouldn't die. The pure sword in Fengwu's hand emitted a white sword aura and attacked the 2 ancient corpses. The 2 ancient corpses seemed to feel a terrifying power from Fengwu's sword aura. However, the corpses only knew how to kill. They didn't know what fear was. The 2 ancient corpses faced the sky and roared. That roar made people's eardrums hurt and their heads swell. Oh my God! This sound is too unpleasant to listen to. It's really unpleasant to listen to. The 2 people who were crossing the cliff were so shocked by this sound that they almost fell off the cliff. After stabilizing their bodies with great difficulty, the 2 of them walked even faster, wishing that their parents had given them 2 more legs. Fengwu's sword actually hit the 2 ancient corpses, and the ancient corpses were destroyed just like that? What a joke. Of course it was impossible. What the sword chi hit was merely an afterimage left behind by the ancient corpse. The real ancient corpse had already dodged Fengwu's attack. Because its dodging speed was too fast, it left behind 2 afterimages. Fengwu identified the source of the sound and turned around to block from behind. She was forced back several steps by the force. The power of the 2 ancient corpses was too strong. Their physical strength was simply abnormal. Just one attack from them had the power to split a mountain. Fengwu retreated several steps. After standing firm, she changed the direction of her sword and used the 9 profound sword art. The 9 profound sword art was the strongest sword art she could use right now. This sword art was passed down by Fengwu's master, by Lianfeng. Its power was very strong, comparable to a saint-level sword art. The saint-level sword arts of this world were limited by the cultivation base. If one's cultivation base was not at the saint level, it would be very difficult to use it. Even if one used it, the body would not be able to withstand the powerful force and would be injured. It could be said that if one injured the enemy 1,000 times, one would lose 800 times. Normally, unless it was a matter of life and death, no one would use a saint-level sword art to fight when the difference between them and a saint level was too big. What a big deal. Could that be a saint-level sword art? I didn't think that little girl would have such a good thing. If you want it, go save that little girl now. Maybe she will be happy and give you the sword art. Go to hell. The saint-level sword art is not bad, but I still want to live for 2 more years. Most of the people standing on the opposite side of the cliff were swordmasters. The saint-level sword art was very tempting to swordmasters. The top sword arts in the continent were the saint-level sword arts and the god-level sword arts. Although there were not many saint-level sword arts, many big families had one in their collection. As for the god-level sword arts, only the super aristocratic families would have half of it. Now that a little girl might have such a treasure like the saint-level sword art, these swordmasters' hearts were naturally burning. However, when they thought that Feng Wu might die in the hands of the two ancient corpses, no matter how hot their thoughts were, they had to give up. Could it be that they could wait for Feng Wu to die and take her interspatial ring? There were two ancient corpses over there eyeing covetously. Although the saint-level sword art was tempting, their lives were more important. It was better to just forget about it. In the blink of an eye, Feng Wu and the two ancient corpses had already exchanged more than 100 moves. The ancient corpses' bodies were very powerful. Feng Wu had the pure sword in her hand, which had the ability to purify. Although it was controlled by Feng Wu and could not absorb the evil aura, it could still purify the evil aura emitted by the ancient corpses. Moreover, the pure sword's body was already surrounded by a pure purifying power. After being hit by the pure sword, the ancient corpses' bodies, which were like iron walls, would also be injured, leaving wounds on their bodies. Xia Zhuo had been watching from afar. He was worried about Feng Wu and was also surprised by her strength. He always knew that Feng Wu's strength should be very strong, but he didn't think that Feng Wu was actually this powerful. The saint-level sword art and the extraordinary dancing weapon in her hand were too easy to be coveted by others. He turned around and looked at the opposite side of the cliff. Sure enough, a group of swordmasters were staring at the sword in Feng Wu's hand with burning eyes. This sword was able to injure the two ancient corpses. With one look, he knew that it was not an ordinary sword. It was very likely to be a saint-level weapon. A saint-level devil sword was a strong temptation to many people. Even some great aristocratic families and super-aristocratic families would definitely be interested and send experts to seize it. Xia Zhuo was not surprised that the group of people opposite would want that sword. When he saw that the two people who were crossing the cliff had finally reached the opposite side, his eyes lit up. He immediately shouted at Feng Wu. "Feng Wu, quickly cross the cliff. We can go now." Xia Zhuo had already seen that although Feng Wu's strength was not bad, compared to the two ancient corpses, there was still a gap. If it wasn't for the weapon in her hand, Feng Wu might have been injured or even killed. The current Feng Wu was obviously not the opponent of the two ancient corpses. The only thing she could do now was to find an opportunity to escape. "You go first." Feng Wu bit her lips and said without turning her head. She couldn't leave now. She had to buy more time for Xia Zhuo, the Feng Wu girl thought. Bao Bao, who had been sitting on Feng Wu's head, was also anxiously looking in Xia Zhuo's direction. He hoped that this brat would not say something stupid like leaving together. Of course, Xia Zhuo would not do such a stupid thing. After hearing Feng Wu's words, he immediately ran in the direction of the rope bridge. Then, he tried his best to balance his body and move to the opposite side. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a bottomless white fog. It was impossible to see what was below. If one fell, even if they didn't die, they would definitely be crippled. Chapter 376. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a bottomless white fog. There was no way to see what was below. As long as one fell down, even if they didn't die, they would certainly be crippled. Xia Zhuo resisted the urge to look down and steadily walked forward. He was now very glad. Even though he was crippled in both magic and martial arts, he had always paid attention to the training of his body. His body's balance and stability were not bad. As long as nothing happened along the way, he would certainly be able to reach the opposite cliff. At this time, Feng Wu was still fighting with the two ancient corpses. The attacks of the ancient corpses were all blocked by the pure sword in Feng Wu's hand. Even though their bodies were already scratched by the pure sword and the wounds were often deep enough to see the bones, the two ancient corpses didn't feel any pain. Those wounds didn't have any effect on them. Moreover, in this environment where there was no evil aura, the two corpses could use the evil aura to heal their wounds at any time. Therefore, the conclusion was that although these wounds looked scary, they didn't have much effect on them. It didn't affect their attack on Feng Wu at all. Even though Feng Wu had the pure sword to protect her body, she was still surrounded by danger because of the pincer attack of the two ancient corpses. Feng Wu's arm was scratched by the nails of the ancient corpses. A bloody wound appeared on Feng Wu's hand. The corpses' bodies were full of evil aura. If one wasn't treated in time after being scratched by them, it was very likely that the evil aura would invade the body and cause death. However, this was not a big problem for Feng Wu. Feng Wu herself was the master of the pure sword. Her body had been nourished by the pure sword for a long time. Any evil aura that invaded her body would immediately be purified. There was no such thing as being eroded by evil aura. Feng Wu was injured, and the people on the other side were also worried. To be able to fight with these two powerful ancient corpses for so long, even if Feng Wu's weapon was more powerful, it couldn't be denied that her own strength also played a role. For such a young genius, it was better to live if possible. After all, not everyone could tolerate geniuses. There weren't many freaks in the world who would kill geniuses for fun. Seeing that Xia Zhuo was already halfway there, Feng Wu nodded. She turned around and unleashed her ultimate move. Sword Qi filled the air, and Feng Wu took the opportunity to leap onto the rope bridge. She walked forward quickly. Feng Wu's body was light, and she had practiced a light body technique before. When she walked on the rope bridge, she did not sway at all. If Xia Zhuo hadn't heard the shouts of those people, he wouldn't have known that Feng Wu was behind him. Everyone was afraid that the two ancient corpses would chase after Feng Wu and the others. If the two ancient corpses chased after them, they could only cut off the rope to save everyone. Fortunately, the two ancient corpses didn't chase after them. The people on the other side of the cliff let out a sigh of relief. Just when everyone was relieved, the rope suddenly broke. Ah! Xia Zhuo didn't expect that Bess would actually plot against them at this time. After a scream, he and Phoenix fell down the cliff and into the white fog. What are you doing? The others also didn't expect that someone would suddenly plot against them at this time. Yes, just when Feng Wu and Xia Zhuo were about to cross the cliff, Bess actually made her move. She used ice magic to freeze one end of the rope, so that the rope could no longer bear the weight of the two people. The part of the rope that was frozen by the magic directly shattered into ice shards, and the rope naturally broke. Seeing a group of men glaring at her, Bess's excitement of getting her revenge didn't reduce at all. I didn't do anything, I'm just doing it for everyone's safety. What if those two monsters come after us? Bess said, twisting her words. You've gone too far. Don't think that others can't see that you're taking this opportunity to retaliate against them. Everyone present looked at Bess with unkind eyes. This woman can stab Feng Wu in the back. Who knows if she won't plot against them? This kind of despicable person is better off killing. Bess saw that these people wanted to kill her. You don't have to worry, I will attack those two people because I have a personal grudge against them. That woman and her accomplices killed my father. I killed her to avenge my father. I don't have any enmity with any of you. Don't worry, I promise this will be the first and last time. As long as no one tries to harm me, I promise I won't do anything to you. Everyone looked at each other and finally figured out why Bess was targeting Feng Wu and Phoenix. So there was such a reason behind it. No one suspected that she was lying. Using her own father to lie, no matter how they thought about it, it was unlikely. Because Bess killed people for a reason, these people's killing intent was reduced a lot. Although they wouldn't kill her, they were still wary of her and didn't dare to believe her easily. After dispelling the murderous intent of these people, Bess felt relieved. She wasn't sure if she could escape from so many people. Moreover, this place was too dangerous for her to act alone. If it wasn't necessary, Bess really didn't want to leave the group. If these people still insisted on killing her, she wouldn't be able to escape and act alone. Fortunately, these people didn't have a strong desire to kill her. The death of Feng Wu and Shouzo didn't splash any waves. Adventurers face all kinds of dangers every day, and they always have a brush with death. No one has the spare heart to sympathize with the dead strangers. The cold wind blew on the body, as if it was cut by a knife. Mournful cries and screams constantly lingered in the ears, making people feel a burst of despair and coldness. The piles of white bones on the ground piled up into a small hill, and some poisonous creatures crawled around in the white bones. The ground was dyed red with blood, and there was no grass on the ground, only a few poisonous flowers standing in the wind. A white barrier shrouded the land, and no living thing could survive in this place. Shozo felt someone patting his face. He struggled to open his eyes, and a vague figure appeared in front of him. Feng Wu. Shozo called out the name with uncertainty. You're awake, are you feeling better? Feng Wu wrinkled her cute nose, and a pair of black gem-like eyes showed obvious concern. Is this the bottom of the cliff? Shozo looked at the scene around him, which was like purgatory on earth, and suddenly felt a chill on his back. We're still alive, I thought we were going to die this time. When she fell, a strong sense of unwillingness almost drowned her. He was burdened with the life and death of all the humans 100 years in the future. If he died before he could do anything, how could he face those who sent him back to the past with their last hope? Fortunately, he was still alive. As long as he was alive, he would complete his mission and help the heavenly wind continent escape destruction. Shozo secretly swore in his heart. Chapter 377. Ah! A burst of shrill screams came. In this gloomy bottom of the cliff, it was like an evil spirit crying. Thank me properly, if it wasn't for me, you would definitely be dead. Baby glanced at him proudly, his little eyes seemed to say, I'm amazing, right? Amazing, right? Amazing, right? Important things must be said 3 times. You saved me. Xiazhua felt a little surprised. He thought that Feng Wu used some special means to save him. He didn't expect that the person who saved him was Baby. It's not that Xiazhua looked down on this little guy, but this little guy was so small, he could just put it in his pocket and take it away. Who would believe that such a little guy had the ability to save people? And as far as he knew, the wise beast didn't have any attack power, except for its own talent. It didn't have any power at all, so he really couldn't associate Baby with the person who saved him. Of course it's me. If you don't believe me, you can ask Feng Wu. Baby said angrily. Feng Wu heard this and nodded. It was indeed Baby who saved Xiazhua. When the two of them fell to the bottom of the cliff, Pure Sword automatically jumped out to protect her, safely sending her to the bottom of the cliff. But Xiazhua wasn't so lucky. It was Baby who used a special enchantment power as a wise beast to save Xiazhua. You can set up enchantments. Xiazhua was surprised. He had never heard of the wise beast having this ability. What's so strange about this? Although we are weak, it's impossible for us to have no power to protect ourselves. This enchantment power is our means of self-protection. This ability can only be used for self-protection. There is no lethality at all. Their wise beast family was so sad. They didn't have any attack power. If they didn't have a little power to set up enchantments, even ordinary small beasts could bully them. When did your wise beast family have this kind of power? The most important thing was, from Zicheng's friends, he had never heard that the wise beast had this kind of power. What the hell was going on? Xiazhua was a little confused for a while. He couldn't figure out whether Zicheng deliberately concealed it in his previous life, or Zicheng's wise beast didn't have this kind of ability. You know I'm the wise beast. Bao Bao was instantly enraged and immediately retreated into Feng Wu's arms. He looked like he was afraid of being kidnapped by bad people. He looked at Xiazhua with vigilance. Xiazhua rubbed his nose awkwardly. He seemed to have accidentally revealed something that he shouldn't have. What should he do now? Even the Feng Wu girl looked at him with a puzzled face. Although Feng Wu was simple, she was not stupid. She knew that the value of a wise beast was enough to make anyone have evil intentions. Moreover, she had never told anyone about the identity of the Rue beast, so how did Xiazhua find out? Feng Wu blinked her big eyes in confusion. 3 words were written in her eyes, asking for an explanation. Well, ahem. Actually, in my family, there are records about the wise beast. Plus, I saw the wise beast's egg a few days ago, so I can probably guess the identity of the baby. Xiazhua had no choice but to lie to Feng Wu and the baby with guilt. You can tell that it's a Rue beast's egg? Everyone else thinks it's an or. How do you know it's me? Unlike the Fengwu girl who was simple and gullible, Bao Bao was a wise beast. Although his IQ was not off the charts, it definitely surpassed most existences. How could such a simple lie be easily believed by Bao Bao? This question was so sharp that he was speechless. At this time, there were more and more mournful screams, rising and falling one after another. Under such a cliff full of bones, it was simply creepy. Let's look around and find a way to eat. Xiaz was stiffly changed the topic, not daring to let Bao Bao ask any more questions. If Bao Bao continued to ask, his disguise as a reborn person would be exposed. His identity could not be exposed now. If he let Irene know, it was because everyone was wearing a disguise and the target was the same. If his identity was exposed, it would be beneficial for everyone's cooperation. He did not have to worry about Irene telling others about his rebirth, because Irene's own identity could not be exposed. And compared to him, a reborn person, Irene was a foreign soul that could not be exposed, so Irene would definitely not talk about it. As for Fengwu, he did not want to say much because he did not want to drag Fengwu into this. There were many things he had to do in the future, and most of them were life-threatening. He did not want Fengwu to be involved in these things. He only wanted her to live happily. Of course, there was also his own selfishness in protecting himself. Bao Bao looked at him deeply. That meaningful gaze made people feel very stifled. There is such strong resentment and evil spirit here. We might have come to an incredible place. Bao Bao looked up and flew to Fengwu's head to continue building his nest. Fengwu nodded, agreeing with Bao Bao's words. This place was both red, evil spirit, and black, resentment. It was really strange. Fengwu girl finished the identification. Fengwu looked around. The screams came closer to her ears, making Fengwu very puzzled. Who was screaming here? It must be very painful. She remembered that on Mount Yuehua, her good friend De Xiong had screamed like this when he stepped into the hunter's trap. So pitiful. He must be injured like De Xiong, Fengwu thought as she blinked her big eyes. The sound here is really uncomfortable. The screams seemed to come from the pain of the soul. Just listening to them was unbearable. Xiazhua followed behind Fengwu and looked around at the bottom of the cliff. He found that there was no other way out except for poisonous insects, poisonous flowers, and white bones. There was only a pitch-black hole standing there. The screams were obviously coming from this hole. Should we go in? Xiazhua frowned as he looked at the hole. He didn't know whether to go in or not. It was obvious that it was not a good place. It might be a dead end if they went in. Of course, there was also the possibility that they could find a way out and leave this damned place. Do we have a choice? If we don't go in, are you going to retire here with a pile of white bones? Bao Bao rolled his eyes impolitely. Okay, he was the one who said nonsense. Let's go. Her master had said that if there were difficulties, she had to overcome them. If she really couldn't overcome them, she had to work hard to improve her strength and then overcome them. Fengwu had always listened to her master. At this time, Fengwu didn't feel much fear in her heart. Instead, she was thinking whether her current strength was enough to overcome the dangers inside. She decided that if it was too dangerous, she would bring Xiazhua out. Then, she would improve her strength and overcome the danger. Yes, it's decided then. If Xiazhua knew what Fengwu was thinking, he would definitely complain. Xiazhua, helpless face, have you ever thought about what if we can't get out? Fengwu, innocent blinking eyes, no, I haven't. Chapter 378. They walked into the pitch-black cave. Even though it was pitch black from the outside, there was a faint light coming from the inside. There were a few green flames floating in the air. Even though they were able to provide some light, they were more frightening than anything else. A pitch-black cave with ghostly flames floating in the air. It was definitely the standard feature of a horror movie. Shouzo swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he followed closely behind Fengwu. Ah! The cry was getting closer and closer. In this cave, the cry seemed to be even clearer. In the cave, there was only one passageway. This passageway led to the inside of the cave, and the cry seemed to have come from there. "Let's go." Feng Wu walked around the green willow, the wisps, and continued forward. "Wait." Shouzo quickly pulled Feng Wu back and took out a magic tool for illumination from his space ring. The dim cave immediately brightened up with the help of the illumination. A chilly wind blew through the cave from time to time, causing chills to run down his spine. To their surprise, there were no corpses in the cave, only some green flames. The two continued forward. The number of green flames increased. It was enough to make one's scalp numb. Those who were more timid would have fainted on the spot. Feng Wu assumed the cries were people who were in the same situation as her friend, Big Bear. She kept walking in the direction of the cries. Even though Shouzo and Bao Bao were worried that the cries would bring them danger, she still insisted on going forward. It was as if a voice was telling her how painful the cries were, and that they needed someone to save them. Feng Wu believed she could save them, so she went forward without hesitation. There was only one path in the cave. They kept walking forward and finally reached the end of the path. At the end of the path was a 2-meter-tall stone door. The cries were coming from behind the stone door. The closer they got to the door, the clearer the pain from their souls became. Shouzo was only a piece of trash. The cries of pain made his heart ache. He felt like his head was about to explode. When Feng Wu saw that even his eyes were bloodshot, she immediately sealed his 5 senses with her Daodu, causing him to fall into a deep sleep. After finding a place to put Xiaozhua down, Feng Wu went to the door alone. She knew that the person she was looking for was behind the door. She slowly reached out her hand and wanted to push the door open. Bao Bao knew that he could not stop Feng Wu. He had already decided to go all out. If there was any danger, he would just run away. Bao Bao could only comfort himself in this way. The door was pushed open and the scene inside was clearly imprinted in Feng Wu's eyes. Inside the gate, thousands of souls were chained to the shoulder armor. These flexible souls were constantly being burned by a white evil flame. These flames brought them endless pain, but did not cause any harm to their spiritual bodies. Thousands of souls were constantly being burned by the flames. That kind of pain could not be described with words. Many of them had been turned into vengeful spirits with only hatred in their hearts due to the great resentment. Only a small number of them still maintained human rationality. Perhaps to them, maintaining human rationality was a kind of pain. The cries that Feng Wu and the rest heard were from these souls. Because of the endless pain they endured every day, the souls were screaming in pain. Could this place be the place where evil spirits are created? This is great. We can solve this problem once and for all. Bao Bao did not think that they would be so lucky. They could meet these pitiful souls who were imprisoned here to create evil spirits. There are actually living people who can come here. Little girl, you are so lucky to be able to come here alive. At this time, a voice entered Feng Wu's ears. Feng Wu looked in the direction of the voice. The person who spoke was a man in luxurious clothes. The man's clothes were very luxurious. They were even more luxurious than the man and woman outside. On his head was a crown that looked like imperial power. He was different from the surrounding souls who had lost their rationality because of the evil spirits and resentment. Although this man's soul also had evil spirits and resentment, it still allowed him to retain his own consciousness. You are the owner of this tomb? Bao Bao looked at the man for 3 seconds and said with certainty, Even my wise beast is here. I did not expect to see the wise beast after I died. The man looked at Bao Bao with surprise. Have you seen other wise beasts? Bao Bao asked curiously. Yes, I have seen a wise beast. It has a strong healing ability. It can heal any injury. It is a very kind little guy. It has helped Olay a lot. As the man spoke, he was being burned by the strange flames, but he did not make a sound. Even Bao Bao was impressed by his perseverance. He must be so tough that he could even endure the damage to his soul. Other than this guy, Bao Bao had never seen another human being. Don't tell me you're talking about my aunt. The wise beasts had always been few in number. Ever since the wise beasts' ordinary nature was exposed, many humans began to have ideas about the wise beasts, wanting to contract their people. In order to protect their people, the wise beasts all hid in the depths of the spiritual world. Few magical beasts could find them. Your aunt is Millie? The human king was also very surprised. He did not expect to see the descendant of his friend. It really is my auntie. I didn't expect the friend that my auntie couldn't forget to be you. Even when my auntie died, she still missed you. Speaking of his auntie, Bao Bao was a little sad. Bao Bao's aunt, Millie, was a very kind wise beast. Among all the wise beasts, she was not the smartest, but she was definitely the kindest. If she was not kind, how could she die in the hands of the Shura clan to save a group of weak humans? When Bao Bao's aunt died, she was still very young according to the age of the wise beasts. She had just reached adulthood. Everyone in the clan felt sorry for her aunt's death. It was probably because her aunt's death was not worth it. They, the wise beasts, were smarter than others, so they often saw things very clearly. In that case, it was obvious that she would die if she stayed. She could go back to the spiritual world, but she chose to die with those humans. Even the smart wise beasts still could not understand her aunt's way of doing things. Is Muriel dead? I can't believe that even she is dead. I told that fool to go back to the spiritual world, but he didn't listen. Hearing that his friend had died, a touch of sadness flashed through the eyes of the young king. Chapter 379. This emperor, who was still very young when he died, must have had a very deep relationship with the baby's aunt. The sadness in his eyes did not seem to be fake. From his eyes, one could see the sadness in his heart. That's what my aunt would do. The elders don't understand. We, the wise beasts, are very smart. Why did we give birth to someone as stupid as Aunt Millie? Feng Wu quietly listened to the spirit and beast talk. From their conversation, Feng Wu didn't know who Millie was, but she didn't ask. She contacted Xiao Chun in her mind and asked him to think of a way to save these poor souls. Xiao Chun, of course, agreed. If he could eat as much as he wanted, it would be strange if he didn't agree. But the fire was a problem. Xiao Chun thought for a moment, and then contacted his friend, Pure Flame. Pure Flame, the purest fire in the world, ranked number 1 on the heavenly flame list. Ever since Pure Flame met Pure Sword on Mount Yuehua, Pure Flame had been living in Pure Sword's pure spirit space. It could be said that Pure Flame had contributed greatly to the successful activation of Pure Sword's intelligence. This was the first time Xiao Chun had asked Pure Flame for help. Pure Flame was a very lazy guy. If it had nothing to do, it would hide in its space and sleep. But this time, in order to help Feng Wu, Xiao Chun had to ask his friend to come out. Pure Flame was number 1 on the heavenly fire list. It had the power to consume all fire. If it wanted to, it could consume any fire. It was just that Pure Flame was too lazy. Normally, it was too lazy to even move, let alone find other heavenly flames to devour, which required a lot of effort. Because of its friend's request, Pure Flame agreed to help. Pure Sword's body trembled. A human-shaped white flame appeared in front of Feng Wu. When Feng Wu saw Pure Flame appear, she looked at it curiously for a while. Although Pure Flame lived in her dantian, she had never communicated with Pure Flame before. There was no contract between them. Feng Wu could only communicate with Pure Flame through Xiao Chun. The appearance of the Pure Flames clearly attracted the attention of the White Flames. After 10,000 years, the White Flames had already developed a faint consciousness. They were all flames collected by the sea god, so naturally, they were not ordinary flames. At the very least, they were flames that were ranked on the heavenly flame ranking. However, when faced with a flame that suddenly appeared in the shape of a small white person, they actually felt a deep sense of fear. They also felt that they would be destroyed by this little white flame at any time. They wanted to escape, but in front of the flame, they, who were originally very aggressive, did not even have the strength to resist. Even the flame became much wilted. They couldn't escape, and could only watch as the white humanoid flame floated in front of them in an instant, and then swallowed them whole in one gulp. Although they looked like flames, they were actually all split from the same flame. Pure Flame saw through this with a single glance. It ate and drank as much as it could in the midst of the thousands of flames. Its main body, which was hiding among the flames, wanted to use the flames to help it escape, but Pure Flame would not give it such a chance. Just as it was looking for a chance to escape, Pure Flame actually appeared in front of it, and then with a big gulp, it devoured its body. Without the power of the main body, the split-off flame quickly lost its light and was extinguished. How is this possible? This was the first time this human king had lost control. His face was full of disbelief, and it showed just how shocked he was. These flames had been burning for tens of thousands of years. They had endured hellish torment every day. They couldn't even destroy themselves. The only thing they could do was try their best to maintain their own intelligence and prevent the baleful aura and resentment from turning them into an evil spirit. If someone had told him before that these flames would be swallowed by another flame, he would not have believed it. But today, he saw a scene that he would never have dared to imagine. This feeling was simply too unreal. If he could still move and still had a physical body, he would definitely pinch himself hard to see if he was dreaming. After Pure Flame dealt with the flames, it immediately flew back into Xiaochun's sword spirit space to slowly digest its food. At this time, Xiaochun appeared. It brought with it a pressure that made people tremble and surrounded the anger, purifying all the bad energy. Then, he also destroyed the chains on these spirits. Purifying these two types of evil aura was extremely painful for the spirit bodies. Miserable screams rang out one after another in the cave. These spirit bodies let out despairing howls and wails. It was only a few minutes later that the evil aura was completely purified. Are we saved? Are we finally saved? We're finally free. Woo woo, we're finally free. LZ is finally free. Voices of joy sounded. These pitiful spirits had been tortured for so long. They never thought that they would one day regain their freedom. Everything that happened at this moment was like a dream. It made people worry that they would be locked in that place again in the next second and let those terrifying flames burn their souls. Thank you, little girl. Thank you for saving my people. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This human emperor who had never cried out or shed a single tear no matter how much he was hurt, shed a tear at this moment. He did not become an emperor for many years. In the beginning, he looked down on everyone. He felt that he was a high and mighty emperor, different from the ordinary people. As he grew, he understood his responsibilities and understood what it was to be an emperor. But he did not have the chance to do much. Because not long after, he was affected by the power of the war between the gods and demons and died. His people, Lin, built a tomb for him and buried all the people who had died with him. Even if they died, they had to follow him, the emperor. However, they didn't expect that the sea god would be severely injured in the great war of gods and demons. In order to create a tomb that no one could steal, he moved his tomb to this place. From then on, whether it was him or his people, they lived in hell forever until today. No need to thank me. It doesn't hurt anymore, right? Fengwu blinked and asked seriously. The human emperor's heart warmed. This girl was indeed the one who was loved by the wise beast. She was really a kind and pure person. It doesn't hurt anymore. He smiled gently. Your Highness. Greetings, Your Highness. Your Highness. Are you all right? I deserve to die. I couldn't protect Your Highness and let Your Highness suffer so much. 1,000 spirit bodies knelt down in front of the former monarch, creating a huge commotion. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.